Chapter 420. He's Lu Cheng. The four simple words made the atmosphere solemn. Zhang Li Guogua, and the others were silent for more than 10 seconds. Look, this is the heavenly son of the age. Ji Lingxi was the first to come back to her senses. She smiled and looked at her companions. Then she turned to Yan Zhika and complained. When they heard Lu Cheng was coming, they were so excited and curious that they wanted to follow me home. They wanted to see what the heavenly son of the age looked like, and see if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. So I'm a monster? Lu Cheng replied humorously. No. You're not a monster. You've been practicing martial arts for a year and a half, and you're already at the top of the 6th pin. You're not a monster, you're a Superman. Zhang Li smiled. He was relatively calm. He turned the dark brown Buddhist prayer beads in his left hand. Yes, a Superman. Han Zhengqiao agreed with an exaggerated smile. In the end, he asked in confusion. Lu Cheng, why do I feel that you're a little different from the one on TV? What's different? Lu Cheng looked at Yan Zhika with a smile, and found that she was just as confused as he was. It had only been 5 or 6 days since he last entered the broadcast. Guogua was a short and petite girl, but her facial features were quite imposing. At this time she also muttered, it's a little different. The you on TV is more flamboyant. You have a kind of temperament that makes people not dare to look at you directly. Haha, I know what's going on. During a fierce battle, you'll definitely release your momentum to oppress and influence your opponent's mind. When the battle was over and you were interviewed, you still haven't completely calmed down, Lu Cheng said in realization. His TV appearance was considered his battle form. So that's how it is. When you're idle, you're like a forest, but when you're fighting, you're like a fire. Zhang Li nodded thoughtfully. None of them were interested in martial arts. They would only watch the matches that attracted a lot of attention. Therefore, even though there were many powerful seniors around them, they didn't notice the details. After such small talk, the atmosphere was relatively lively. Ji Lingxi, Han Zhengqiao, and the others sat down and began to chat about various things. It was obvious that they were focusing on Lu Cheng. Seeing that he was not very interested, they did not mention the rosary beads, the yellow jade ambergris, and other things. Instead, they talked about the gossip of the martial arts circle. Lu Cheng didn't care about what they were talking about. Even if one of their collections was worth more than all of his savings, he didn't feel the slightest bit inferior. Instead, he took it as an opportunity to broaden his horizons and listen quietly. Since he had the confidence, there was no harm in doing so. Time ticked by. Lu Cheng tapped on his phone, looked at the screen and got up with a smile. It's getting late. I need to rest. You guys take your time. His tone was normal, but there was a hint of irrefutability in it. Ji Lingxi stood up as well and asked in surprise, so early? Since he started practicing martial arts, he's been living like an old man. Yes, so am I. Yan Zhika explained for her boyfriend with a smile. She also thought of an excuse for herself. Then it's time for us to go back. Zhang Li turned the prayer beads and smiled. We're going out to sea tomorrow. Do you want to join us? Let's go fishing and get some fresh air. Oh right, there are a few fights on the open sea with no restrictions on life and death. There were referees in the challenge tournament. It was more exciting than exciting. Some rich people privately organized underground challenge tournament in war-torn areas and on the open sea to satisfy their own desires. Challenge tournament without referees. Even if no one died in the real fight, there would definitely be scenes of blood splattering everywhere and bones breaking, which would excite the beastly side of people. Of course, the fighters who were willing to make quick money in the challenge tournament weren't very strong. If there was a dance stage 7th pin or 6th pin fighter, even if they owed a lot of money, there would be someone to vouch for them, and they would have the opportunity to repay their debts slowly. No need. Lu Cheng glanced at Yan Zhika and declined with a smile. Tomorrow, he would stay at home with Ko and massage her belly. He had left this day empty in his previously cancelled travel plan. Alright, I'll find you next time out at sea. With your listening skill, you'll definitely catch a lot of fish. Zhang Li didn't insist. He left the Ji family's old house with Han Zhengqiao and Guogua, and got into his SUV. He took off the dark brown prayer beads and put them on the gearshift. After a few seconds of silence, he asked, "What do you think? What do you think of Lu Cheng?" "He's quite gentle, friendly, and introverted." Han Zhengqiao rubbed his eye bags and answered seriously. "But don't you think his aura is very strong? It's the kind of feeling where you can do whatever you want, and we can only listen obediently." Guogua frowned and said softly, "Haha, that's normal. That's the confidence of a mighty one accumulated through countless victories. My mother was the same. She didn't need to get angry or speak loudly. As long as she decided something, I wouldn't dare to say a word." Han Zhengqiao laughed at himself. Let alone a heavenly son of the era like him. Yeah. Zhongli started the engine and started the car. "Anyway, regardless of whether he can become a physical invulnerability expert in the future, I think he'll definitely become an inhuman," Han Zhengqiao added. "We're not strong and we don't have the heart to practice martial arts. It's good to make more friends like him." Yo, I didn't expect our young Master Han, who loves wine, cars, and women, to say something like that. Guogua laughed. Han Zhengqiao was a typical spoiled brat. "This is called being prepared for danger in times of peace," he replied. Zhongli nodded in agreement and said slowly, "I didn't advise you in vain. Why do you think Lingxi had to come back today? Is it because of their sisterly relationship?" "Isn't it?" Guogua and Han Zhengqiao asked in surprise. Zhongli chuckled. The Ji family is a typical martial arts family. Although they have a lot of assets, money, and power, they're still ranked by their strength. Before he could finish, Guogua interrupted him. She played with her wavy hair and frowned. "Uncle Ji and his siblings are very close. They're very close. That's because old master and old madam are pressuring him. Haha, where there are people, there will be the underworld. Where there is money and power, there will be disputes. How many mistresses did Uncle Ji keep outside in order to have a strong son and daughter to stabilize his foundation? It's a pity that none of them are good enough. He doesn't even dare to bring them home." Zhongli sighed. Lingxi has shed countless tears because of this. She may seem like a carefree playboy, but she knows better than anyone else. She knows she can't achieve anything in martial arts, so she doesn't want to fight for anything. She just wants to maintain her current status and life. It's the most reasonable and practical choice for her to continue befriending Yenjika. Especially since she has an amazing boyfriend, the kind that's really amazing. Lu Cheng had been interacting with the Heavenly Sons of China recently, making it seem like there were many young martial artists of this level. In fact, there might not even be one in several provinces. At least Zhang Li and Han Zhengqiao were around. Previously, only Lin Ke was slightly close. In a situation where a high-ranked Dan stage inhuman could become the upper class of a province, it was normal for the Heavenly Sons of China, who had a high chance of reaching the physical invulnerability stage, to be highly valued. Brotherly. Han Zhengqiao was stunned. He couldn't help but gasp. "You're really good at hiding your strength. You see things so clearly." Zhongli sneered. "My family has a lot of people. If I were really stupid, I would have been swallowed up by others. How could I be the young master?" He sighed again. "I'm really envious of Lu Cheng and the others. They're strong and don't have to worry about scheming. Anyway, I'm waiting for a chance to help him or be helped by him. Either way, it would improve their relationship." In the guest room of the Ji family's old house, Lu Cheng didn't try to sneak into the room under the watch of a physical invulnerability expert. After washing up, he lay on the bed and received a call from his mother. After a few words, Qi Fong said mysteriously, "Your brother has made a fortune recently." Ha! Lu Cheng was dumbfounded. Lu Yanwei really succeeded in starting his own business? I haven't heard him mention it recently. Erzi has expanded his business to Xiushan. He asked your brother to help him, and even gave him shares. Qi Fong gossiped excitedly. She wasn't jealous because of this. After all, her son was very promising and not just anyone could catch up with him. Lu Cheng was stunned for a moment. "Who's Erzi?" Qi Fong didn't know what to say. After a while she said, "He's a relative from Qingfu. He often comes to visit your grandparents recently." I remember now. He's a nice guy," Lu Cheng said perfunctorily. "He has no taste. How could he ask your brother for help? Look at how many things he has failed." Qifeng insisted that Lu Yanwei didn't have the ability to start his own business. It doesn't matter. After all, we're not the ones who suffer losses. Lu Qing laughed. That's true. Also, your dad got promoted recently. Fatigua put him in charge of the whole factory and gave him shares. Cheng, don't you think it's because of you? You just won the national championship and Fatigua mentioned it. What's that idiom? What's that? Qifeng didn't know much about it. Icing on the cake. Lu Qing helped his mother add. Fatigua is a nice guy. Didn't he help me in my hour of need back then? That's true. Anyway, if he really asks you for help, don't worry about us. Help if you can. Don't worry if you can't. Qifeng said with concern. Yes, yes, yes. Lu Qing replied with a smile. After the phone call ended and the surroundings quieted down, he sighed with emotion. After he won the national championship and gained the reputation of being the heavenly son of the age, everything around him was changing. It might have happened in the past, but it was definitely not as obvious as now. Without him saying anything, the fate of his relatives and friends had changed. Until now, Lu Qing really understood what it meant to change one's status. Chapter 421. While Lu Qing was on the phone with Qifeng, Jilingxi kicked off her slippers and sat cross-legged on the bed in Yanjika's private bedroom. She looked at her cousin who had just changed into her nightgown with a faint smile. Ko, you're so good at keeping secrets. Do you still think I'm your sister? I saw you hugging Lu Qing in the finals a few days ago. That's how I guessed you two were together. If it were before today, Yanjika would have been a little proud of her cousin's words. However, the truth told by Lu Qing had dispelled her complacency. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She replied, I didn't mean to lie to anyone. Grandpa and Grandma already knew. Humph, Sister Lingxi, it's because you're living too freely and don't care about me. That's why you didn't find out, right? She had kept it a secret for a long time. Except for her father, she couldn't keep it a secret from anyone. Why was she so careful with Cheng in the beginning? Jilingxi was at a loss for words. She combed her hair and said, Didn't I tell you that some guys wanted to pursue you? What did you tell me? I don't want to find a boyfriend for the time being. Isn't that a lie? She changed her voice and tone to Yanjika's to describe the original words. I didn't lie to you. I already have a boyfriend. Of course I won't find another one. I have to be wholehearted in love. How can I have a foot in two boats? Yanjika retorted righteously. As she spoke, her lips curved into an unconcealable smile. I've already thought about how to explain it. Jilingxi's mouth twitched. She said bitterly, I really want to pinch your face. In childhood, Yanjika had cute baby fat. Jilingxi almost developed the hobby of pinching her face. Without waiting for her cousin to speak, she changed the topic and gossiped excitedly. Ko, when did you and Qing get together? How long? She had asked similar questions on QQ before, but Yanjika always changed the topic skillfully. She didn't want to share her and Cheng's private affairs with others, even her cousin. Now Jilingxi finally had a chance to interrogate her directly. Yanjika's eyebrows twitched. She pursed her pink lips and answered reluctantly, We got together on Valentine's Day last year. Speaking of this, she suddenly felt sweet and unknowingly added, He chased after me for a semester. Ayaya, I really want Cheng to chase after me again. I didn't feel anything back then, and didn't get to enjoy it properly. Valentine's Day last year? At that time, Lu Qing hadn't reached 9th pin yet, right? Jilingxi recalled the introduction she had read about Lu Qing. Probably a weak 9th pin. Yanjika retorted seriously. Jilingxi took a deep breath and furrowed her brows. She said in surprise, In other words, when you two got together, he was just a newcomer who didn't show any signs of becoming a heavenly son of the age at all. Could you have good taste? At that time, I didn't think that he would be so talented as to reach rank 6 so quickly. Yanjika rolled her eyes and bit her pink lips. She said, I just felt that he was silly and very attentive to me. Yes, very attentive. He was also very motivated and willing to work hard. Chatting with him and going through the challenge tournament with him were very interesting. That's why I fell in love with him. As she spoke, her tone gradually softened. Obvious sweetness and happiness overflowed between her eyebrows. Her eyes were like ripples in the spring breeze. At this moment, Jilingxi felt that her cousin was too beautiful to look at directly. She was blinded by the happiness in her words. Why were all my 3 boyfriends useless and unmotivated? But could pick an old classmate who had just reached 9th pin and pick a heavenly son of the age? Was there really something wrong with her taste or the standard of her choice? After Yenjika finished her narration, she stopped reminiscing and looked at her cousin with gentle and bright eyes. She waved her white hand in front of her. Sister Lingxi? Jilingxi came back to her senses and decided not to continue this topic that would make her feel sad. She chuckled and said, Did I disturb you and Luqing by calling you before? Yenjika was stunned at first, but then she understood. Thinking of the charm in the car, she couldn't help but blush and deny it. Of course not. Hey, I'm experienced. First love aside, I have at least 2 serious ones. When you picked up the phone, even as a woman, my heart skipped a beat. If it were a man, he would have knelt down and said, Okay, I'll listen to you. I'll give you whatever you want. Jilingxi said. Jilingxi teased. She reached out and poked her cousin's collarbone. Besides, isn't there physical evidence? Yenjika looked down blankly and saw a red, obvious kiss mark on her delicate collarbone. Her collar was wrinkled with gauze and covered her collarbone in a refined and elegant manner. Even Luqing didn't notice that he had left a mark. It was only when she changed into her nightgown that everything was exposed. All of a sudden, Yenjika felt her face burning. She wished she could find a hole and hide in it. She had a subtle feeling of being caught red-handed in bed. She jumped out of bed in embarrassment and anger, and ran to the dressing mirror. She took a selfie on her collarbone, and sent it to Luqing. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. My cousin saw it. Luqing had just finished lamenting that the fate of his relatives and friends had changed because of him when he saw the girl's message. I was too excited just now. Jilingxi saw the whole process of Yenjika getting out of bed and taking a selfie. She suddenly felt a sense of loss. This was the kind of pureness and passion that only real first love had. Her first love, which was like a child's play, came to an abrupt end. It couldn't even be considered a first love. By the time she fell in love with him for the second time, she loved him so much that they hurt each other so much that they broke up in the end. By the time she had a boyfriend for the 3rd time, her heart had already aged. She thought more and did less. She was no longer pure and unrestrained. Seeing Yenjika come back bashfully, Jilingxi adjusted her mood and smiled. Cool, let's sleep together tonight. I have a lot of things to ask you. Okay. Yenjika hesitated for a while and then nodded. When Jilingxi went back to the bedroom to take a shower and change into her nightgown, she lay on the bed and buried her face in the pillow. She raised her legs and swung them. She had planned to calm down and get rid of the blush on her cheeks. However, she inexplicably recalled the passion by the river and the panic between them. Yenjika suddenly sat up and bit her lower lip. She picked up her phone and opened the search page. She seriously thought about the brand and model of the car she had driven before. Then, she bashfully typed a line of words in the search bar with a hint of a smile. Can the passenger seat of XXX car be flat? How do I do it? Click. The search results refreshed. Yenjika had just browsed a few when she suddenly received a message from her boyfriend. Cool, what's the brand and model of the car we just drove out of? Luqing asked with an emoji pushing up his sunglasses. Seeing the familiar question, Yenjika's face turned red again. She replied with 2 words. Pervert. Pervert. Luqing looked at the inexplicable answer and scratched his head in confusion. I just thought that this car was good. It was fast and stable. If I need a car in the future, I can consider it. That's why I asked. How did I become a pervert? The next morning, Luqing temporarily put his doubts to the back of his mind. He got up on time, washed up, and went out. He found a corner in the spacious courtyard of the Ji family's old house. Breathing in the fresh air, he visualized the swordsman formula and the corresponding internal training methods of Frost Force and Zhurong Force. The injury on his arm would be healed by the end of May. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to practice his moves. Instead, he concentrated his qi and blood to comprehend the force concentration of the balance between ice and fire. In practice, he felt the experience of the yin and yang, two forms that old Master Ji had shown him yesterday. The key to the inhuman level was the strengthening of one's willpower and the improvement of one's mental control over one's root pulp. Under the accumulation of internal training, one's body would show signs of supernatural abilities, and one's quality would change. However, this did not mean that one could enter the inhuman level seamlessly with supernatural abilities. Possessing certain characteristics due to this realm, and possessing similar characteristics due to certain characteristics were completely different. They were fundamentally different. Lu Cheng's ice and fire supernatural ability came from the stimulation of the Jindan and the blending of power, which was different from his frost force and Zhurong force. If he wanted to enter the inhuman level, he still had to follow the prescribed internal training and change his root pulp so that it was compatible with the martial arts instead of the Jindan. When the supernatural ability of ice and fire, frost force, and Zhurong force were perfectly integrated, there would be no difference. That was one of the main conditions to enter the inhuman level. His chi and blood, spirit, and force all contracted and embraced each other in balance. Then they quickly collapsed and rushed out. Lu Cheng observed the subtle changes in his body, looking for the traces of the changes of yin and yang, ice and fire. Unknowingly, the sky was bright and the sun was piercing. Lu Cheng put away his stance and exhaled a mouthful of foul air, ending the morning training. His physical qualities were not at the level of the top sixth pin. How could he enter the inhuman level in one step? Calming down, Lu Cheng returned to the house and met Ji Jianzhang and Dou Ning, who had also returned from training. They nodded in satisfaction. After breakfast, Ji Lingxi went out to see to play. Yanjika's stomach started to hurt, so she went back to her room to lie down. Lu Cheng went to sleep beside her and rubbed her stomach with his warm hands. Yanjika felt the familiar support and the care to relieve the pain. She felt that the pain was not so bad. Sneaking a glance at Lu Cheng, she suddenly recalled what her cousin Ji Lingxi had said last night. "Ku, are you still going abroad?" "Yes." "Are you willing to give up your Lu Cheng? Are you not afraid? Are you not afraid of problems?" "I believe in him, and I believe in myself." "Then enjoy it. There is only 1 year and 3 months left." Hearing this, Yanjika's mood inexplicably darkened. She couldn't help but lean closer to Lu Cheng. "There is only 1 year left. I have to cherish every day with Cheng." After the pain of the first day passed, Lu Cheng and Yanjika had a good time in Linning with their tour guide, Ji Lingxi. On the afternoon of the 4th, they set off on their return journey. In the past few days, except for her aunt who went to Shushan study to take care of Lin Kei, Yanjika's uncles, Ling Fong and Ling Yun all had excuses to not come back. When they returned to campus, Lu Cheng and Yanjika's life was once again fulfilling. Every day, they had to work overtime to make up for the classes they missed. Fortunately, during the national competition, they rarely went out. After watching the videos of their opponents, they spent most of their time studying. Finally, they caught up with the progress before the final exam and were confident about their grades. After the last exam, Yanjika was about to wait for Lu Cheng when the class monitor told her to go to the school office. "Cheng, I'm going to the lower house office. Wait for me after the exam." She sent a message with her dimples. Then she followed the class monitor to the dean's office and saw 3 classmates who were in the same training program as her. When the dean saw that everyone was present, he crossed his arms and coughed. "Ivan University has made a request. They hope that the training program can be advanced by 1 year, and you can go there in your 3rd year. This way, you can adapt better and learn better. The school has thought about it and thinks it's a good idea." Seeing the dean's mouth open and close, Yanjika didn't hear the rest of his words. There was only one thought echoing in her mind. 1 year ahead, 1 year ahead. Chapter 422. 1 year in advance, 1 year in advance. At this moment, Yanjika didn't feel happy at all. Instead, she felt flustered and sad, as if she had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. At the beginning of May, when Ji Lingxi asked her if she still insisted on going abroad, her answer was firm and resolute. However, when everything happened in advance, she suddenly felt the strong reluctance in her heart. She had promised to go drifting with Chung during the summer vacation, to go to the northern lands to see the aurora in January next year, to spend her and Cheng's 21st birthday together, to go to Yuanyang Mountain to ask for the lock of love on their second anniversary together, to announce their relationship after meeting his parents, to stick together every day, and to whisper sweet nothings to each other. She thought too much, promised too much, and had too little time. Bring the materials I just mentioned here as soon as possible. The school will help you with all the procedures. If everything goes well, you can leave at the beginning of August. There will be a short-term language training program. I believe it will be easy for you with your foreign language foundation. Well, you can go back now. If you can't remember the materials, here is the list. The dean stroked his increasingly precious hair tenderly. Early August? It's the end of June. That means there is only 1 month left. In 30 days, I will be separated from Chung. I can only see him 2 or 3 times a year. Yenjika suddenly felt breathless and her heart tightened. She endured the sudden throbbing, took the list blankly, and followed the students in front of her out of the dean's office. Yenjika. Suddenly, she heard a slightly shrill voice. Yenjika came back to herself and looked up at Huang Shiwen. Huang Shiwen was the one who had received the same training quota as her. Huang Shiwen was the one who had called her just now. What? Yenjika responded blankly. What were you thinking about? I said when we get there, we can live together, okay? We know each other and are classmates. We can take care of each other. Huang Shiwen complained and repeated what she had just said. Her chubby face washed away her gorgeous features, making her easy to get close to. The 2 boys beside her were also discussing the same thing. Yenjika was a girl who would never cry when she was sad. She was used to keeping all kinds of negative emotions in the bottom of her heart and not letting them out. When Huang Shiwen finished, she had already controlled herself and answered with a faint smile. Okay, if there is no other arrangement at home. They were all classmates and didn't lack each other's contact information. Without saying much, they parted ways in front of the school building, each with their own business. On the way to the basic teaching building, Yenjika wandered under the shade of the trees, tasting the reluctance and nostalgia in her heart. She had been gone for at most 5 to 6 years, or at least 3 to 4 years. She had been gone for more than 1,000 days and nights, longer than the time I had spent with Chung. There were many accidents, many coincidences, many tests and many suspicions. If she was not careful, her feelings would be fragile and dissipate. Even if I don't go abroad, I can still study deeply, share the Empress Dowager's worries, and do whatever I want in the field I like. Wouldn't it be nice to be with Chung every day, accompanying him as he climbed to the peak of martial arts, sharing his pain and suffering, feeling his happiness, anger and sadness, and watching each other grow old bit by bit until the end? But if I really give up, I will regret it for the rest of my life. I will feel that my years of effort have been wasted. I will feel that my personality is no longer complete, and I will become Cheng's accessory, dream or love. Once again, Yenjika sighed as if a hero's breath was short of love. Maybe it's really like what Dad and Empress Dowager said. It's best not to fall in love in college and to go easy. At this moment, a melody inexplicably appeared in her mind. If there is no you and no past, I won't be sad. But if there is an if, I will still love you. Yes, no matter what, I still want to love that silly Chung. Yenjika bit her lip. Her emotions rose and fell. After a painful struggle, she decided to take the opportunity to study abroad. I believe in myself and Chung. I believe that we can withstand the test of time and distance. I believe that we can finally walk together and go through all the hardships and happiness in life. Phew. She spat out the melancholy and sadness in her heart. Then she heard the special notification sound of her phone. She took it out of her bag and found that it was a message from Lu Chung. Ko, are you still not done? Do you want me to pick you up at your school building? Yenjika's eyes turned red because of this simple sentence. She turned her head and looked aside. After a while, she replied with an expression that looked like she was crying and laughing at the same time. I'm done. You stand there and wait for me. Her fingers paused in the middle of typing, and then she pretended to type the last few words. I'll pick you up. Okay, the usual place. Lu Qing replied with a silly smile. At this moment, his phone suddenly rang. It was from his mother. Hello, Chung. Have you finished your exams? How do you feel? Qifeng asked about his studies out of habit. Just right. Not bad. Lu Qing couldn't find any other words to describe it. His grades were probably above 60 or 70. He probably didn't fail any subjects. Qifeng didn't really care about her son's studies. After a short sentence, she asked the key question. When will you come back? Have you booked the tickets? She lowered her voice and said excitedly, Chung, why don't you bring that classmate of yours home and let mom and dad meet her? It's that Yenjika. You two are destined to meet. High school classmate, college classmate, martial arts club teammate. After defeating Shanbei in the finals, Yenjika and Lu Qing hugged each other passionately and almost kissed each other, which blinded a group of single dogs. At the same time, it also exposed their relationship in front of Lu Jisheng and Qifeng. That night, during their daily call, Lu Qing witnessed his mother's ability to gossip and was bombarded for a long time. After her son finally grew up and had a wife, he almost forgot about his mother. Qifeng was quite satisfied with Yenjika, who was very good in all aspects. Plus, they were from the same hometown, so she was more satisfied with them. She kept urging her son to bring his girlfriend back and let them meet her. To be honest, if her son didn't win the national championship and was called the heavenly son of the age, she felt that she would be more nervous. She was worried that her son didn't deserve her daughter-in-law, and that they would fall in love in the future. Yes, that's right. That's a phrase she just learned from TV. Mom, I've told Ko that I'll bring her to our house when I'm free when I'm back in Xioshan. Lu Qing didn't specify a specific day because he still wanted to abduct Ko and try to find a place to go on a trip with her before they returned to Xioshan. Okay. You have to tell me in advance. I have to go grocery shopping and prepare a welcome gift. Qifeng rambled on. Suddenly, she remembered something. Come to my door. Oh, last summer. Didn't Han Er's wife say that a very beautiful girl came to our neighborhood? I wonder whose girlfriend she is. Qing, tell me honestly, it's Yenjika, right? She's here for you, right? Yes. Lu Qing wiped his cold sweat and admired his mother's memory of gossip. Of course, he also had a deep impression of this matter, because it was the first time in his memory that he saw and felt the beautiful body of a girl in real life. Moreover, it was the body of his beloved girl. You two were together at that time? Qifeng's voice suddenly rose. You're all grown up now, aren't you? You hid it from me for almost a year. Mom, I was wrong. I wanted to tell you after my relationship with Ko had been confirmed. Lu Cheng's apology came naturally to his mother. Practice made perfect. Qifeng wasn't angry. She pondered for a moment and said, I told you that you look very smart in your clothes for more than a year. Fortunately, her son dared to bring his girlfriend home secretly after he went to college. Unlike the others who were caught fooling around at home in junior high or high school. After chatting for a while, Lu Qing hung up the phone and saw Ku walking quickly toward him. She was dressed in a t-shirt, denim shorts and white sneakers, which showed the youthful look of a student. What are you going to do in the institute? Lu Qing asked with concern. Yenjika pursed her lips and lowered her eyebrows. She smiled and said, There are some changes to the training plan. I'll tell you after it's confirmed. Who were you talking to on the phone? My mom. She urged me to take you home to meet my parents. Lu Qing raised his eyebrows and smiled deliberately. He muttered in his heart. Some changes? What changes? He always paid special attention to Coach Yan's affairs. Yenjika, who wanted to say something coquettishly, opened her mouth a few times and only said 3 words with a smile. Okay. Aren't you nervous? Lu Qing asked in surprise. Yenjika was amused. She stared at him and said, It's because you keep telling me that your parents are very nice and satisfied with me. I'm not nervous. You're right. It's good that you're not nervous. Lu Qing asked with expectation. Then when do we go back? How about we find a place to hang out for a few days and have a date? Yenjika raised her eyebrows and looked at him deeply. She took the initiative to suggest, Well, let's hang out in Songqing for a few days. There were too many memories of her and Cheng here. Okay, I'll make a guide later. Let's see what's worth playing and eating in Songcheng. Lu Qing didn't really care where they went. What was important was to be with his little fairy. Yenjika tilted her head and outlined her dimples. She waved her hand happily. Let's go to the aquarium in the afternoon. We've been talking about going but we've missed it. Speaking of this, she laughed and said, how much do you remember about marine biology? I've almost forgotten. Lu Qing deliberately covered his face and sighed. Yenjika laughed and said, that's good. Otherwise, I'll look very ignorant. I'll go back and change my clothes and wipe my face first. I have to take my date with Qing seriously. Infected by his girlfriend's unexpected excitement and joy, Lu Qing was in high spirits. After returning to the dormitory, he quickly packed his luggage and waved goodbye to Zhao Chong, Kai Zongming and the others. It was cool today, not as hot as a few days ago. Lu Qing waited for a while and saw Yenjika coming out with a suitcase. She had changed her clothes. She was wearing a white cotton skirt, a pink jacket, a pair of cute canvas shoes and skin-tight stockings. Her face was covered with light makeup, which made her already beautiful face even more radiant. This was how she looked when she invited Lu Qing to the aquarium in March last year. Lu Qing was really amazed at that time, and had a deep impression of her. After taking the suitcase, he said with confusion and amusement, Ku, are you going to relive the past? You still remember? Yenjika asked in surprise. Of course, I almost couldn't move my eyes away. How could I forget? Lu Qing said with a smile. Yenjika chuckled a little complacently, clenched her fist and waved it. This is a date to make up for last year's regret, so it's still the same. I'm looking forward to it. Lu Qing replied with a bright smile. Then he coughed and said with expectation, I've already booked a hotel. Just one room. With my current relationship with Ke, there's no need to secretly book 2 rooms, right? Okay. Yenjika looked forward and nodded slightly. Chapter 423. Lu Qing was overjoyed to hear his girlfriend's affirmative answer. He quickened his pace and felt that they had made a breakthrough in their relationship. He didn't continue to mention the accommodation because he didn't want to aggravate her shyness. Instead, he started to ponder. A date to make up for last year's regret? Everything as usual? But I don't remember what I was wearing at that time. Yenjika thought about it seriously and burst into laughter. I don't remember either. She only remembered Cheng's tired face, his slightly wrinkled eyebrows, and his movements that made her want to kiss him. Thinking of this, she pursed her lips and lowered her head. Her eyes flickered as she looked at her toes. She wrapped her arms around her boyfriend's arms and leaned closer to him. It's okay. Rough guys wear the same clothes every day. Just put up with it. There's no difference. Lu Qing mocked himself in the way girls usually did. While talking and laughing, they boarded the school bus and arrived downtown. They found the 5-star hotel that Lu Qing had booked. While walking to the front desk, Yenjika suddenly stopped and looked aside. She pretended to take out her ID card from her bag and said, You go and check in. I'll wait for you here. As she spoke, an unnatural blush appeared on her cheeks. Seeing this, Lu Qing understood. He held back his laughter and took the girl's ID card. He said calmly, Okay. Previously, when he didn't return home at night, he had booked 2 rooms at first, and then cancelled them later. Moreover, he had always appeared alone and asked Ke to face the front desk with him. Just one room was indeed difficult for a shy girl like her. Well, after a few more times, she would get used to it. Now she would leave it to a thick-skinned boy. Hee. Putting down their luggage, Lu Qing came to the front desk and handed over their ID cards. We booked it online. The girl at the front desk looked up at him, and was suddenly stunned. She blurted out, Lu Qing. You know me? Lu Qing asked in amusement. Yes. The girl at the front desk nodded hard. I watched your national competition. I really liked your performance. You were so awesome and handsome. She was a little excited. Well, I'm really famous now. I have to wear glasses as a disguise. Lu Qing thought and smiled. Thank you. Give me your autograph later. The receptionist picked up his ID card and began to check in. She was stunned for a moment and said, 2 people? This is F*** King embarrassing. Lu Qing said shamelessly, Yeah, me and my girlfriend. Oh, the girl at the front desk didn't say anything else. She quickly made a copy of his ID card and completed the check-in procedures. In the end, she handed the form to Lu Cheng and said, "Sign your name here. Also, sign your name on this piece of paper for me. For you shall we." After he was done, Lu Cheng took the room card and returned to Yenjika. 1506. Yenjika looked at the receptionist curiously. "What were you talking about?" "The girl at the front desk has watched the Nationals and knows me. She asked me for an autograph," Lu Cheng answered honestly. Yenjika froze for a moment, her face turning bright red at a speed visible to the naked eye. She hurriedly turned around and said shyly to the door, I don't live here anymore." The first time she shared a room with Chung, she met his fans. I am too ashamed to meet them. If I had known, I would have checked in alone and let Ching sneak into the room." "What are you afraid of? We are perfectly justified." Lu Ching comforted her with a smile. "We have already gotten the room card. Others have already begun to think what they want. Just let them be." Yenjika had the mentality to throw away everything. She restrained her emotions and followed her boyfriend to the 15th floor, putting their luggage in the room. "What are we having for lunch?" Lu Ching looked at the cloudy sky outside the window and asked. Their exam was the first round, which ended at 10 o'clock. It was only 12 o'clock now. Yenjika didn't think, as if she had already thought of the answer. "Spicy crab on the tripod. The one where we had our first date. How could Lu Ching forget this?" "Yeah. I want to reminisce." Yenjika nodded cutely. After a little tidying up, they went out hand in hand and took a taxi to the place where they had their first date last year. Luckily, the door was still open. Lu Ching looked at the sign of spicy crab on the tripod and felt happy for the place that carried his beautiful memories. He definitely hoped that it would stay there forever and never change. So did Yenjika. Her dimples deepened and her smile became sweeter. When they entered the restaurant, the waiter was just about to greet them. Before he could say anything, Lu Ching saw the price tag and said quickly, the one that costs 199 yuan. 12 crab, hand-fried noodles, shrimp dumplings, beef." The waiter was stunned for a few seconds and said, Please slow down. I'll remember it." "Shouldn't you order the crab first, and then check the other options on the menu after sitting down?" Yenjika couldn't hide her smile. These were all the dishes they had ordered on their first date, but the quantity was more than double. Chung still remembers. Her eyes softened and she deliberately said jokingly, "Wow, you're getting better at answering first." Hey, they're all the dishes we ordered last time." Lu Ching led Ke to a seat and sat down. "You still remember?" Yenjika rested her chin on one hand and looked at him with bright eyes. Lu Ching chuckled and said, "At that time, I observed what you liked to eat and what you didn't like to eat, so I had some impression of the dishes you ordered. At first it was a little vague, and I only had a vague memory of it. Now that I am here, I remember it." Listening to her boyfriend showing off, Yenjika's eyes welled up with tears. She quickly turned her head to the side and held back the throbbing in her heart. After a few seconds, she changed the topic and said coquettishly, "I also paid attention to what you didn't like, but you didn't eat anything. This shows that I'm easy to take care of. I eat whatever I'm given." Lu Ching smiled and praised himself. Well, if little Ming was opposite, he would probably say, "Do you eat sh*t if I give you sh*t? But Ke would definitely not do that. "Then I'll give you the leftovers in the future." Yenjika tried to make her tone light. As usual, the two ate to their heart's content. Their appetite was so big that they ordered 2 more dishes. The waiter was stunned. He saw the boss and insisted on giving them VIP cards. In such a mid-priced restaurant with no luxurious dishes, the two of them could eat more than 3,000 yuan. No matter where they were, they could get the VIP treatment. After finishing their meal, Lu Ching and Yenjika walked along the route of their first date. "Chung, do you still remember where you held my hand?" the girl asked with great interest. Lu Ching seriously recalled and said with self-mockery, "I didn't pay attention to where we were and where we were. My mind was full of whether to hold your hand, how to hold it, and whether you would shake it off. When we really held hands, I was so excited and happy that I forgot the directions." I only had you and your hand in my heart. It was like walking on clouds, so light that I wanted to fly. Yenjika pursed her lips and rolled her eyes. She seemed to really feel her boyfriend's state at that time. It was as if a sudden joy hit her heart. She turned her head and looked at the side of the street. She was actually a bit shaken by the decision she made in the morning. What about you? Do you still remember where we tied the knot? Lu Qing asked in reply. Yenjika rolled her eyes and pouted. If you don't remember, how can I remember? At that time, I was very nervous. My mind was on your hand that kept leaning towards me. I wondered if you were going to hold my hand, how I should react, whether I would hurt you, whether I was reserved enough, whether I was... In short, my mind was full of random thoughts. I was lucky that I didn't bump into anyone else. Later on, I realized that you were stupid and silly, and even held hands foolishly. My heart softened, and I inexplicably took the initiative to hold your hand. Speaking of this, both of them completely recalled the naivety, ignorance, sweetness and passion of that time. They smiled at each other and raised their hands that had been intertwined since they came out of the meal. Although they didn't have the mentality of not knowing where to go when holding hands, they held hands more calmly and firmly. There was a faint sense of permanence. In this way, the two walked side by side on the street, warm and sweet. Do you remember that we bought a fresh cream cake here? Lu Qing smiled and pointed at the sign of Mimi bread. Yenjika bit her lip and chuckled. Not only do I remember that, but I also remember that someone lied to me. Ah, Lu Qing was at a loss. Someone told me that the fresh cream cake here was not so sweet and was suitable for me. He said he found it on the internet. Yenjika hummed. The sweetness was just right, but I couldn't find this shop on the internet. Lu Qing suddenly realized what was going on. He smiled embarrassedly. I came here to check it out and try it. At that time, didn't you say that you still need to adjust your mentality and not fully prepared? I was afraid that if I said it, it would be like forcing you to be moved and giving you too much pressure. Before he finished, Yenjika's eyes were already red and rippling. She suddenly took a step forward and threw herself into his arms. She hugged him tightly and buried her face in his shoulder. What's wrong? Lu Qing was startled. Yenjika tried to hold back her tears. Can't I be moved? Lu Qing stroked the girl's glossy black hair and smiled contentedly. It was always a joyful thing to get a response for one's efforts. Let's buy another fresh cream cake later and eat it together tonight. After a while, Yenjika withdrew from Lu Qing's arms and her expression returned to normal. Okay. Lu Qing pulled her into the bakery. After buying the cake, they took a taxi to the ocean aquarium. This time, there was no unexpected situation to interrupt them. Look, this is a starfish. After tearing it into pieces, each piece can become a new starfish. Lu Qing pointed to a creature behind the glass. Yenjika was surprised. Didn't you say that you had almost forgotten your marine biology? When I was waiting for you, I crammed it again. Lu Qing answered complacently and pointed to a kind of marine creature. It is. Damn it, I forgot. I failed to show off and became a clown. Haha. Yenjika covered her mouth and laughed until tears came out. After a long time, she wiped her eyes and said, there should be an introduction beside it. If you really can't find it, I'll allow you to search it on your phone, commentator Lu. They laughed and laughed until the aquarium was closed. They found the restaurant where they had their second date and enjoyed dinner. Lu Qing pretended to go to the bathroom and went downstairs to buy a bouquet of flowers as usual. Beauty, you dropped something. He put his left hand behind his back and smiled at Yenjika. Familiar lines and familiar scenes. Yenjika opened her mouth little by little, and her eyes were covered with tears. She forced a smile. Flowers? Yes, you dropped it. Lu Qing bowed slightly like a gentleman and handed the flowers to the girl. Yenjika held the flowers and quickly closed her eyes, pretending to smell the fragrance. After a long time, she looked at Lu Qing and said, but I dropped something else. What? Lu Qing asked with a smile. Yenjika's eyes flashed like water. She pursed her lips and turned her head. Boyfriend. Lu Qing burst into laughter and directly sat next to the girl. Their fingers were intertwined. While he was happy, he inexplicably felt that Ko was a little clingy today. After dinner and a walk, Yunjika and Luqing returned to the hotel with the flowers and cake. The light in the room was dim. Outside the window, there was a river of stars. It was quiet and private. Luqing, who had shared a bed many times, couldn't help but think as if he was looking forward to something. At this moment, Yunjika put the bouquet on the table and sat on the edge of the bed. She touched her calf and stomach and said softly, "I feel so sore when I walk. Chung, come and help me massage my feet. Pinch my legs." This was a common thing between the two of them, so there was nothing strange about it. However, as she spoke, she suddenly blushed. Unable to hide her shyness, she lowered her head and looked at her right hand that was supporting the bed. Her right hand was as beautiful as a budding flower. Luqing's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. Chapter 424. Was Ko inviting someone to join her? While thinking of this, he forgot about the fresh cream cake and threw it aside. He walked to the bedside, squatted down and held Yunjika's left ankle. Just as he touched her silky smooth skin, he suddenly heard the girl's skin and muscles trembling. He heard her heart beating faster and faster. He heard her body temperature gradually increasing. This reaction was completely different from the usual before a massage. Dong dong dong. Every heartbeat of Yunjika's seemed to resonate with Luqing's heart, making his mouth dry and his body hot. He was inexplicably looking forward to something. There was no other contact, no other ambiguity. He already felt his blood vessels swelling as he tried to do it as usual. During this process, Yunjika's heart beat faster and faster. Luqing held his breath, feeling that he was about to turn into a werewolf. Dong dong dong. The slightest provocation was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, like the call from the little fairy, like the starting gun. Luqing suddenly lost control and lowered his head. This place has been sacrificed to the divine beast. The night was short, but the passion was long. After a series of ups and downs, Luqing woke up under the urging of his biological clock. His nose was filled with a faint fragrance, and his body was warm and soft. Everything was like a beautiful dream. Recalling the events of last night, he unconsciously revealed a silly smile. He only felt that his body and mind were satisfied, and his spirit was perfect. Everything in this world was so beautiful. He raised his head slightly and looked at Yunjika, who was curled up in his arms like a child. He looked at her painful and pure expression, which made him want to protect her. He looked at her beautiful face, which was set off by her long black hair. He felt the girl's delicate skin, and the touch that he couldn't bear to part with. He felt her clinging to him, as if she was afraid of losing him. Luqing felt that his heart was about to melt. He could still hear the words Chung echoing in his ears. This was the fusion of spirit and flesh. This was the other person I was closest to. This is the girl I want to protect for the rest of my life. He lowered his head devoutly and kissed the girl's long eyelashes and red lips. His hands began to move unconsciously, making the early morning hostility even more fierce. I won't do it again. Yunjika hit him in a daze and mumbled. She turned over and fell asleep again. It took Luqing a great deal of willpower to get out of bed. He even began to worry about how upset Ko would feel if she didn't see him when she woke up. He almost didn't want to go for his morning exercise. Is this what Ko always says? Long love is short of breath? He laughed at himself, changed his clothes and went out. He found a place nearby and began to train. Both his mind and body were very excited. Although he had slept for less than 2 hours last night, he did not feel tired at all. People are in high spirits when faced with happy events. After finishing the rest of the internal training, Luqing once again tried to comprehend the force concentration. He felt that his willpower had become stronger and firmer. He felt that no one or anything could defeat him. This is the life I want to protect. Ice and fire intertwined, embracing each other in a balanced manner. Amidst the surging and gushing power, it drew the response of the most minute part of his body. The cold light flickered, and the dark flames danced. Luqing finally grasped the signs in the perfect reflection of his soul. He grasped the minute details that made up every cell, and every bone and blood in his body. This is the root pulp. He opened his eyes, feeling even happier. Grasping the root pulp meant that he was beginning to reach the inhuman realm. This was not a sufficient condition for a breakthrough, but a necessary condition. Since returning at the beginning of May, after nearly 2 months of training, his physical quality had reached the level of the top 6th pin. He originally thought that he would have to wait for a while for the next improvement. Who knew that after a night of dancing with fish and dragon, his mind was settled, his spirit was refreshed, and his willpower was restored. Naturally, his level increased again. There are still 6 months until the end of the year. I have a good chance of pushing that threshold. Lu Qing thought happily. Then he put away his stance and hurried back, not wanting to waste a single second. The curtains were closed, but the room was still dark. A strange but exciting smell filled the air. Lu Qing saw that Yenjika was still asleep. He sucked on his fingers, and the smile on his face grew wider. He felt more peaceful and happy. He quickly took off his clothes, took a quick shower, and got into bed. He hugged his soft and fragrant fairy and slept with her until noon. When he woke up, Yenjika's eyelashes fluttered, and she slowly opened her eyes. Then she enjoyed a warm wake-up kiss. Morning, no good afternoon. Lu Qing put his elbows on the bed and smiled in a low voice. Yenjika's eyebrows curved, and she reached out her hands to hold his neck. She smiled sweetly. Good afternoon, my dear. She no longer felt embarrassed to call him that. Just as Lu Qing was considering whether to eat first or do something, Yenjika pursed her lips, and her eyes wavered. She gathered her courage and said, Qing, I have something to tell you. The training plan of our school has to be brought forward 1 year. She didn't sound determined at all. Instead, she showed some confusion and uncertainty, as if she was asking for help and an answer. Chapter 425. Lu Qing, whose mind was filled with sweetness and happiness, couldn't digest what Yenjika had just mentioned. He was momentarily at a loss. When he came to his senses and understood what was going on, he was instantly struck by a huge sense of loss and sadness. His heart felt as if it was tightly gripped by an invisible hand. A year in advance? That is to say, in 2 months at most, or at least 1 month, Ku will go to a foreign country? The two of them had just joined spiritually and were glued to each other like glue. Right now, Lu Qing only wished that he could be with his little fairy every minute and every second of every day. Just the thought of her going to stay at her grandfather's house for a few days during the summer and being separated from him made him feel lost. Every day felt like a year, not to mention that they would suddenly be separated from each other for a few years. At this moment, Lu Qing's emotions were surging and boiling. He almost blurted out that he should let Ke give up the opportunity and choose to stay so that she wouldn't die. But when he saw the confused and struggling look in her eyes, he suddenly restrained himself and thought of more. This wasn't something he didn't expect at all. He was even mentally prepared for it. It was just that it was suddenly brought forward by a year. This wasn't a reluctant attempt by Ku after they started dating. It was a dream and a plan that had been made long before they met, in March of last year. She had already discussed this matter with him and obtained his consent. She was born with a deficiency. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't enter the dance stage. Her life's dream had slowly shifted to this matter in the past 5 or 6 years. She came from a well-off family. Even if she didn't do anything in the future, she wouldn't have to worry about her quality of life. The reason why she wanted to study abroad wasn't because she wanted to get a diploma, but because she had such an opportunity. An opportunity to follow the world's top scholars, an opportunity to roam the ocean. The Ji family was very influential in China, but in another big country, their reputation wasn't so good. Once this opportunity was missed, there might not be another one. When they first started dating, didn't Empress Dowager also make a request? 2 people need to sacrifice a certain amount to break in, but she didn't want to see Ke sacrifice her dream for me. Yenjika opened her clear eyes and looked at Lu Qing with inexplicable anxiety. She was swayed, distressed, and struggling because of his silence. If Qing wants me to stay, what should I say? I will. After the crazy idea she had last night, she decided to try the illusory probability and leave everything to God. The girl felt that she had once again lowered her bottom line. Her heart was filled with sweetness and bitterness. Since ancient times, love was the most torturous. At this moment, Lu Qing squeezed out a smile and tried to speak in a casual tone. A year earlier? That's pretty good. Doesn't that mean we can come back a year earlier? Previously, I was worried that I would only be able to fly over and spend a few days with you after you left in your 4th year. Now it's just right. My 3rd year is mainly to guide them and do my own preparation. There are very few competitions that I need to participate in. As for my studies, the dean has already told me that he will work hard to ensure that I graduate and successfully obtain a certificate. I will become the school's golden signboard. It doesn't matter how much I skip classes and take exams. Isn't it just a matter of getting a visa and traveling for more than 10 hours? Isn't it simple? Empress Dowager will probably stay with you for a while at first. After that, you can leave it to me. I will fly over once a month and stay for a week or 2. When you are on vacation, we can still go to the northern land to see the aurora. It's even more convenient. We can still travel to those special places. Yenjika stood there in a daze as she listened to his slightly long-winded and confused nagging. Her clear and beautiful eyes were gradually covered with tears. Also, my master has said that one needs to accumulate more knowledge and experience before reaching the physical invulnerability stage. Only then can one have a chance to leap over the dragon gate and soar into the sky. When I go over to accompany you, I can also experience the American martial arts. They are the center of the Western world and have different characteristics from our martial arts. They definitely have stronger aspects than us. Before Lu Qing could finish his words, Yenjika suddenly propped herself up and hugged him tightly. She buried her face in his well-defined chest and said in a choked voice, "Chung, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave you. Chung, Chung." Her voice was like a reenactment of their first meeting. Lu Cheng's heart completely softened and almost melted. He took the opportunity to lie down and let the girl lie on his body. He reached out and stroked her hair that was slightly messy, due to the sweat from last night. He smiled gently and said, "Silly girl, you really don't want to go?" The more sad and sentimental she was, the more she wouldn't cry. When Yenjika raised her head, she had already held back the throbbing of crying. Her pink lips moved a few times, but she couldn't give a definite answer. That master was very old. It was said that his health was getting worse year by year. If they missed this opportunity, not to mention whether he would still be alive, there would most likely be no more opportunities. Once such a situation occurred, the outstanding disciples he taught would definitely set up their own schools due to their differences in academic knowledge. There would no longer be such a holy land, where so many top scholars gathered. Go. I hope you can become better and better with me, instead of sacrificing yourself. On the other hand, I also have to work hard to become a better version of myself. I can't be left behind by you. Lu Qing smiled softly while caressing her. But you're giving up too much. Yenjika bit her lower lip with her white and neat teeth. Her voice was still lingering with hesitation. Why did the role change? Why am I persuading Ke to study abroad? Lu Qing smiled bitterly and answered seriously. 2 people are going to spend a lifetime together. How can we be entangled with who gives more and who gives less? Besides, you also have to give. Every time you have a holiday, you have to come back and accompany me. Every day, you have to insist on saying a few sweet words to me. When you encounter a problem or feel vulnerable, don't hide it from me. Tell me and I'll fly over immediately. After knowing that Yenjika was going to study abroad last year, he had been reading similar posts and summarizing other people's gains and losses. That was why he could say such words. Yes. I promise, I swear. Yenjika breathed a sigh of relief as if she had finally found the answer. She stopped struggling and pursed her lips, nodded, and cutely raised 3 fingers. Lu Qing turned back and scratched her cute nose. He smiled slightly and said, "You see, I have the ability and free time to fly over to see you at any time. I can accompany you for a few days, or even a dozen days, or even every month. Hee, absence makes the heart grow fonder. If the security there is not too good, I can also spend a lot of money to hire female dance stage seniors from Shushan Study or Ice God Sect to accompany you and protect you. And you can come back at least twice a year or even more. In this way, the test of time and distance will be minimized. I read a book before. There's a very reasonable sentence in it. All the fear of a long-distance relationship is the hatred of one's own powerlessness. Speaking of this casually, he smiled and his eyes became firm. Let me say something that may be a bit boastful. I've worked hard to improve my martial arts to reach my current level. Apart from my love for martial arts and my desire to compete with my idol, isn't the more important reason why I want to make the difficulties between us no longer be difficulties one day? Isn't it so that I can reduce the influence of various methods in the face of challenges and not be powerless? This is the true meaning of protection. If your girlfriend is abroad and you have money and time, but you are not willing to spend time to visit and maintain your relationship, no matter how well you say it, it's just to move yourself. That's all. Yenjika listened with drunken eyes. As soon as Lu Qing finished speaking, she crawled up, lowered her head, and pressed her moist lips on Lu Cheng's. Sticking out her tongue, they tangled intensely. Because she was not wearing underwear, her body was exposed when she moved. Lu Qing caught a glimpse of her from the corner of his eye. The beautiful scene of red and white was reflected in his mind and ignited his blood. As they kissed, Yenjika suddenly paused and hit Lu Qing shyly. You pervert, when I'm so moved you can. She was too embarrassed to finish her sentence. Lu Qing could only laugh dryly and say, I can't help it. Pfft. Yenjika burst into laughter. Her previous haze was gone. She propped herself up slightly and looked at Lu Qing with her charming eyes. She suggested softly as if she had made up her mind. Qing, let's get married. Lu Qing was dumbfounded and confused. He asked back, Are you proposing to me? Yes. Yenjika nodded like a chicken pecking rice. Lu Qing came to his senses and looked at Yenjika, who was serious. He asked again, Really? This is not a joke. This is not a drill? Yes. Yenjika's eyes were gentle and her smile contained both determination and impulse. She counted with her fingers and said, First, we are both 18 years old. We are adults and can get married. There is no such thing as late marriage and late childbirth in China. Second, our household registers are in school. Before the holidays, we can borrow them. Yenjika said tirelessly. Her dimples deepened as if she was brewing a jar of wine. Lu Qing was drunk even before he drank. The girl took a breath and blushed. She looked at Lu Qing shyly but firmly. Third, I'm not forcing you to do anything or wait for me. I'm just making a promise. I can protect myself until the end. I want to tell you that I've made up my mind. I'm willing. You're the only other half in my mind. I'm willing to marry you. I want to be your husband and wife. I'm willing too. Before Yenjika asked, the emotional Lu Qing said, Then let's go back to school now and find an excuse to borrow our household register. Then go buy a ring. How can we not have a ring when we get married? Yes. Yenjika's eyes were covered with mist. She nodded briskly. This has nothing to do with other things. It belongs to the two of us, Cheng and Ke's wedding. How can one not be impulsive and crazy in their youth? Chapter 426. After eating the cake and desserts they bought last night, Lu Qing and Yenjika walked out of the hotel hand in hand and took a bus back to the old campus. They first bought a few sachets from the nearby stores, then slowly walked to the traffic point and returned to the new campus of Songqing University, where they had lived for 4 whole semesters. When the scenery of Weishui Lake, the teaching building, the long bridge, and the lakeside corridor came into view, Yenjika felt an inexplicable sadness in her heart. She leaned closer to her ex-boyfriend, who was now her husband. Lu Qing sensed Ke's melancholy at the thought of parting. He wrapped his right arm around her shoulders and pulled her into his embrace. He comforted her with his actions and body temperature. In the quiet but not depressing atmosphere, the couple got off the bus and walked to the administration building with their hands clasped together. They returned the residence page to the management teacher before the end of the day. The excuse they used was the truth. Yenjika's participation in the joint training program had to be brought forward by a year, and the school had to help with various procedures. They didn't have time to get a visa to travel abroad, so they had to return the residence page in advance. As for the American visa that Lu Qing wanted, he didn't plan to get it himself. He planned to get it done through the Ice God sect, which was safer and more convenient. If there was something that required his cooperation, then he would ask. Otherwise, if a dangerous guy who was close to the inhuman stage entered the country, the inspection would be very strict. When everything was done, it was close to noon. They came to the school restaurant, opened the door of the reserved room, and saw Li Liantong, Shi Xiangyang, and Zhong Yanru. Since the first time he treated them to a meal, Lu Cheng and his ex-girlfriend's roommates often had chances to meet. For example, when they had a meal in the dormitory, if it was outside the school, they would ask him to be their bodyguard. If it was inside the school, once it was over, he would come to pick Yanjika up, take a walk, and then go on a date. After winning the national championship, the couple was even asked to eat 3 times by them. Therefore, they were not strangers to Lu Cheng. At this time, they all smiled and greeted him. "Hello, great martial artist." Lu Cheng was used to being teased. He raised his hand and waved lightly in response. "Hello, comrades." The girls burst into laughter at the same time. After they had calmed down and sat down, they threw the menus to Lu Cheng for him to choose. Then they turned to Yanjika and started talking about her study abroad. Why so sudden? Li Liantong maintained a dignified and quiet posture. "Cuckoo, if that's the case, how many years will you be gone for?" Zhong Yanru, who knew about this beforehand, asked with concern. "Woo-woo, I can't bear to part with my fragrant, fair, and soft big cuckoo. Although I already have a boyfriend, I still love you the most." The tall and slender Shi Xiangyang, whose eyes were slightly out of focus, said half jokingly and half sadly. She was the second one in Yanjika's dormitory to be single. She claimed that she couldn't take it anymore after being fed dog food for 2 semesters. Following Shi Xiangyang's words, the atmosphere suddenly became gloomy. The sensitive and delicate girls recalled the bits and pieces they had spent together in the past 2 years, and their eyes reddened a little. Yanjika forced a smile and said, "A year early is good. This means that I can come back a year early." At that time, Dirty Tong and Cabbage might still be studying and haven't graduated. Li Liantong and Shi Xiangyang had 7 years of clinical experience. They still had a long way to go. "Maybe you already have a child, and we haven't graduated yet." Ever since she became familiar with Lu Cheng, Li Liantong's pretense had decreased, and she could say such shocking words from time to time. After joking for a while, she suddenly sighed and said, "What should I do? I feel like I've fallen out of love. I can't see Cuckoo who always blushes because of my teasing. I can't observe how you fall in love to gain experience. I can't. As she spoke, her voice gradually became softer, and she actually choked with sobs. This immediately made Zhong Yanru and Shi Xiangyang's eyes moisten, and they said similar words. The atmosphere became more and more sad, and Lu Cheng also felt a little uncomfortable. No matter how good and confident he had said before, he panicked when he was concerned. How could he not have some feelings for the departure that was coming in a month's time? However, he concealed it very well, and his attitude was very proper. He didn't want to affect his little fairy's mood because of this. He exhaled, stood up and said, "I'll go out in order, and also use the washroom." This kind of scene was really not suitable for the waiter to come in and order. "Okay." Yanjika held back her emotions and nodded. After Lu Cheng went out, Li Liantong picked up a tissue and wiped the corners of her eyes. She decided to change the topic and liven up the atmosphere. She curled her lips, looked at Yanjika, and squeezed out her signature smile. "Cuckoo, I remember you packed up and left 2 days ago. Ruru also said that I should have informed you on the day the exam ended. So?" Zhong Yanru asked blankly. Without waiting for Yanjika to speak, Li Liantong chuckled and said, "You left 2 days ago. Why did you suddenly come back to the school to treat us to a meal? You were nearby these 2 days, right? What did you do?" When a couple is about to separate, they can't help but break through their previous boundaries. Why are your thoughts so dirty? Yanjika's sadness dissipated, and shyness welled up. She habitually interrupted Li Liantong, wanting to change the topic. "Don't explain. Any explanation is a cover-up. If you don't believe me, you can ask Cabbage and Ruru. They definitely don't believe that you can still control yourself at this time." Li Liantong pointed at Shi Xiangyang and Zhong Yanru, who had a look of realization. Seeing Yanjika's shyness, She blinked her eyes and lowered her voice. I don't want to ask about your specific progress. I'm just curious. You know, girls tend to have more imagination than guys when they write about pure love. There are always some weird positions, no diverging. I've seen many stories about powerful martial artists. They deduced the application of their various abilities at that time and broke through the sky. I just want to ask you, is it like this, for example? Don't ask. After Yenjika understood, she immediately interrupted Dirty Tong's words. Her pretty face became as bright as the sun, and she was so beautiful that it was out of this world. Images flashed in her mind, and she felt her cheeks heat up. Seeing this, Li Liantong laughed out loud. See, I wasn't wrong, right? If Ku and the rest didn't do anything, they wouldn't have said don't ask, just now. Instead, they would have said, how would I know? Sai, our favorite cabbage has really been taken by that guy outside. You tricked me. Yenjika blurted out. She was at a loss and embarrassed. I actually got tricked by Dirty Tong and admitted it myself. It's mainly because you have a guilty conscience. Li Liantong covered her mouth and laughed. After coming back to their senses and understanding the situation, Shi Xiangyang and Zhong Yinru couldn't help but laugh. They either leaned on the table or lowered their heads, laughing heartily. Infected by them, Yenjika gradually started laughing as well. She felt that she really wasn't cut out for doing bad things, unless Chung brought her along and helped to cover it up. At this moment, Lu Qing came back from the washroom. He pushed the door open and said in surprise, "What are you guys laughing about?" Shi Xiangyang, Zhong Yinru and the rest looked at each other. Recalling Li Liantong's example, they laughed even harder and almost slammed the table and chairs. Yenjika was also embarrassed and amused. She couldn't say anything. Lu Qing looked at them blankly, and felt that he really couldn't understand. These four girls were so sad and sorrowful just a moment ago. Why are they smiling so brightly and happily in the blink of an eye? Girls are so complicated. The meal was sometimes sad and sometimes cheerful. However, all banquets must come to an end. Amidst the mess of cups and plates, Lu Qing called the waiter, and paid the bill with his phone. After leaving the restaurant, they stood at the door. Zhong Yinru teared up again and said, "Could take care of yourself over there. Remember to come and play with us when you come back during the holidays." Okay. Yenjika tried her best not to cry and simply nodded in response. Just as Shi Xiangyang was about to speak, she suddenly lost her voice. After taking a deep breath, she said, Keep in touch when you're free. Now is the age of the internet. Everyone can still chat frequently. You and your Qing have to be good. We're waiting for you to get married and give us red packets." "That's right. I have high hopes for you guys. You'll definitely make it to your wedding day." Li Liantong imitated Yenjika's light-hearted tone. However, the redness at the corner of her eyes and the mist in her eyes had already deeply betrayed her. After a moment of sadness, Lu Qing and Yenjika bade farewell to them. They looked at each other, and held hands again. If Dirty Tong and the others know that they can give us red packets now, they'll definitely be shocked. Yenjika smiled with complicated emotions. More than that, it's inevitable that there will be a floor full of glass shards. Lu Qing sighed and smiled faintly. After that, the newly married couple remeasured the many places they had left behind memories with their footsteps. From the lakeside where the grass was long and the birds were flying, to the desolate and vast western district, from the long bridge where they often met to the teaching building where they had lessons every day. In the next 2.5 days, they rarely went out. Other than eating and practicing martial arts, they stayed in the hotel room. There were even 2 times when they directly ordered takeout. One of them had abnormal physical strength and was full of vigor, while the other was bursting with emotions and was indulging in youthfulness and passion to their heart's content. They couldn't wait to become conjoined twins. On Monday, June 30th, Yenjika received the materials sent by Yenkai and Jimingyu. She handed them over to the school office and embarked on the journey back to Xioshan with Lu Qing. When there was a need here, she would come back to cooperate. However, at that time, it would most likely be Empress Dowager instead of Lu Qing who would accompany her. June 30th, 5:40 p.m. The high-speed train was speeding and was about to arrive at Xioshan Station. Lu Qing didn't play with his phone. He tilted his head and looked at the exhausted fairy who was sleeping. Thinking of the crazy days these days, his heart was full of tenderness and sweetness. He felt that his wife was so beautiful, and he liked her so much. At first he put his arm around Yenjika's shoulder. Then he felt that it wasn't enough, so he slid down to hold her slender waist. Then he felt that it wasn't enough, so he leaned over and held her completely in his arms, breathing in her fragrance. After a while, Yenjika woke up from her sleep with trembling eyelashes. She looked up and saw Lu Cheng's familiar face. The loss caused by the nightmare immediately disappeared. She reached out and hugged her husband's waist. After hugging quietly for a while, their phones rang at the same time. It was from each other's mother. "Hello, Mom. What's up?" Lu Cheng answered the phone in surprise and lowered his voice. Yenjika beside him also spoke in a similar tone. Qifeng nagged. "You're coming back soon, right? We were going to eat at home tonight, but your grandpa asked us to come over. He said that Erzi wanted to treat us. He heard that you're back, so he insisted on treating us." Chapter 427. Seriously, they didn't even know to postpone it for a day. "I'm already drooling over your home-cooked dishes." Lu Qing flattered. Qifeng smiled proudly. "Isn't that right? I've already bought the groceries. Let's talk about it when you get home. We'll go there when both of you are back." Okay. Lu Qing hung up the phone and turned to look at his little wife, no, his leader. He smiled and said, "It's my mom. What a coincidence." "Me too." Yenjika smiled and shook the phone. "Empress Dowager and my dad are at the square in front of the station." Lu Qing thought for a while and said with a smile, "Now I don't have to avoid them and can send you out directly. Ku, do you think I should call you Mom and Dad?" Yenjika opened her mouth and pursed her lips. She glanced at Lu Qing and said, "I don't care if you have the nerve to call me that." While they were flirting, the train stopped at the station. Lu Qing stood up and took Yenjika's suitcase down with one hand as if it was a child's toy. Carrying the luggage, dragging the suitcase and pulling his wife, Lu Qing walked out of the train in high spirits and entered the arrival hall. When they were about to go out, they saw the sun outside, the bright sky and the steaming heat. He and Yenjika looked at each other subconsciously and sighed suddenly in their hearts. These dreamy, beautiful and crazy days were over. Scenes flashed through their minds one after another, and the two of them fell silent. However, they pulled each other even tighter and leaned closer together. Out of the hall and turning around the road, Lu Cheng's eyes suddenly opened up. The square was dyed golden red in the last brilliance of the setting sun. The elegant Yan Kai and the mature and beautiful Ji Mingyu were waiting a few steps away. They were holding hands and holding umbrellas. "Your parents have such a good relationship." Lu Qing broke the silence and praised from the bottom of his heart. They had been together for more than 20 years. Yenjika raised her head proudly and said with a smile, "Young man, work hard. They are your role model and goal. All goals are meant to be surpassed." Lu Qing chuckled. While talking, the two of them had already approached Yan Kai, who had a slightly complicated look in his eyes, and Ji Mingyu, who was smiling. Lu Qing somewhat guiltily called out, "Uncle, Auntie, Dad, Mom." Yenjika didn't let go of Lu Cheng's hand, and just called them like a spoiled child. Just as Ji Mingyu was about to speak, she glanced at her daughter and her heart skipped a beat. Although Ku's expression hid her tiredness, her entire person was delicate and radiant. Even as her mother, she had a strong sense of amazement. She thought about how her daughter was going to leave the country soon, and was about to leave her boyfriend. As someone who had been there before, she understood. However, she didn't blame Lu Cheng. After he entered the dance stage and won the youth tournament in one fell swoop, she felt that the two little guys would steal the forbidden fruit at any time. Because of this, she even reminded her daughter to pay attention to safety measures. She didn't expect that this kid could hold back until recently. Then she remembered that her daughter didn't give up her dream because of this and obviously got support and understanding from her boyfriend. Ji Mingyu looked at Lu Qing more highly, and was more satisfied with him. "Now that you have a boyfriend, you don't want to be close to your mother anymore?" She looked at her daughter and joked, lifting her left arm. Yenjika's pretty face blushed. She let go of Lu Cheng's hand and took half a step forward, intimately hugging Empress Dowager's arm. She said in a sweet voice, "No." Because of the private engagement, she felt a little guilty toward her parents. Ji Mingyu turned to Lu Cheng and said with a warm smile, "Little Lu, where is your house? Let's go together. We'll send you back on the way. It's troublesome to take a taxi." "Okay, thank you, Auntie." Lu Cheng didn't reject the olive branch from his mother-in-law at all. After saying that, he quietly mouthed to Yenjika, indicating that what he wanted to say was actually, "Thank you, Mom." Yenjika wrinkled her nose and gave him a coquettish stare. The Yen family's car was parked outside the square in front of the station. Along the way, Ji Mingyu and Yenjika walked in the center with umbrellas. Yen Kai and Lu Cheng accompanied them, listening to the mother and daughter chat, and occasionally adding a few words. After putting down their luggage and getting on the SUV, Lu Cheng and Yenjika sat in the back and clasped their hands together again. After the car started, Yen Kai looked back at his daughter and said with a smile, "Cool, your grandparents want you to live in Zhengkai County for a while to accompany them. They're afraid that after you go abroad, they won't be able to see you again." "How can that be? I always come back during the long holidays. It's almost the same as now." Yenjika subconsciously defended herself. "Your grandparents mean that it's not convenient for them to make phone calls." Yen Kai smiled gently. Yenjika looked up and said, "Then they can video chat online. They can see me directly. Well, this time I have to teach them how to do it." Listening to their conversation, Lu Cheng was a little disappointed. Ku was going to stay at her grandparents' house for a few days. Didn't that mean that he would be separated from her for a while? Their time together before going abroad would be reduced a lot. At this time, Yenjika turned to look at him. Her face was flushed, but she said firmly, "Dad, didn't my grandparents say that they want to see Cheng? I'll go with him then." Ji Mingyu, who was driving, couldn't help but laugh. She was both disdainful and proud. She didn't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing to have a daughter who looked like her. Yen Kai was silent for a while, and then said with a complicated smile, "Okay." Lu Cheng was pleasantly surprised and his disappointment disappeared. He couldn't help but pull his little fairy's hand towards him. They looked at each other and smiled. Yen Kai asked, "When are you going?" "A few more days. I have to go to Cheng's house." Yenjika's eyes were dizzy, and her voice was getting lower and lower. An ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law, and she's already a legal daughter-in-law. Although Yen Kai was mentally prepared, he still felt inexplicably melancholy. He always felt that his daughter was not grown up yet. How could she be abducted? How could she be at the stage of meeting her parents-in-law? Then you have to prepare well. I didn't know these things back then, and no one taught me. I almost made a fool of myself the first time I came here. Ji Mingyu recalled and said angrily. Yen Kai thought for a while and said, "Say hello to Lu's parents for me." In Xioshan, unless it was a blind date, in-laws were not allowed to meet when the younger generation was meeting their parents. Only when the young couple had a stable relationship and were ready to talk about marriage would they have a few special gatherings to finalize details such as the date. "Thank you, Uncle Yen." Lu Cheng hurriedly returned the greeting on behalf of his parents. Not long after, Ji Mingyu parked the car across the road according to his instructions. Waving goodbye to his real wife, mother-in-law, and father-in-law, Lu Cheng stepped into the familiar yet strange neighborhood. The general environment and layout of the buildings here had not changed. More than 10 years felt like a day, as if it had been sealed in time. Most of the pedestrians were the same, but there were more mottled faces, more white hair, and more recently born faces. The renovation of the new house had been completed at the end of April, but it would be open for a while. According to Qi Fang, they would choose a date to move in October. Along the way, Lu Cheng was greeted by people. Some people treated him as someone else's child and scolded the teenager beside them, which made him laugh secretly. He walked briskly up the stairs, took out the key and opened the door. Before he entered, he saw his mother coming over with a smile. "You're fast. Uncle Yen sent me back." Lu Cheng answered frankly. He glanced at the living room and asked, "Where's Dad?" "Him." Qi Fang replied unhappily. Since he became the factory director, he has been busier than before. He said that he has to live up to the trust of others. He's not home until 6:30 every day. Don't mention your dad. Then she smiled and said, when is Jekka coming? Your mother has to be prepared in advance. Her daughter-in-law was coming, so she took the initiative to change Jekka to Jekka. Jekka is fine these days. It's up to you. Lu Cheng struck while the iron was hot. How about tomorrow? No, I don't know if she'll like the food I prepared for you. I have to do a big cleaning and tidy up the house. I can't see her in such a mess, Chi Fong said to herself. Also, I have to call your aunt and ask her to send some vegetables from her farm. Jekka comes from a good family and must be tired of expensive food. She has to try something new. Listening to his mother's nagging and feeling how much she valued her daughter-in-law, Lu Cheng felt warm and couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Chi Fong took out her phone and didn't have time to make the call. I'm happy for Jekka, Lu Cheng replied humorously. Chi Fong smiled. I've asked around. Jekka is a good girl. She's gentle and pretty. She was much better than you when we were in number 1 middle school. Didn't you always say good things about her in my ear? At the mention of number 1 middle school, she suddenly sighed. Chung, when you were in high school, I was worried that you wouldn't be able to find a girlfriend. I wasn't a boring and introverted person in high school. Was I that bad? Lu Cheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't know what to say. Double critical damage from his own mother. After Chi Fong contacted Chi Yen and set the date for the day after tomorrow, Lu Cheng took out his phone and sent a message to Yen Jika, whose name had been changed to Madam Wife. My mom said the day after tomorrow. She values you so much that she even asked me what you like to eat. She wants to go to the market to buy it again. She even asked my aunt to send the vegetables that she planted at home over. She also wants to do a big cleaning and do your hair. For the sake of family harmony, he didn't hesitate to praise his mother and daughter-in-law in front of them. Yen Jika replied with a blushing expression. Auntie is so nice. You have to call her mom. Snickering expression. Lu Cheng replied. Go away, I don't have a husband like you. Yen Jika sent an expression of blowing a whistle for a red card, followed by an expression of lowering her head and smiling shyly. I'm still not used to calling you that. My face was burning from typing just now. It's so embarrassing. But it's not the first time you've called me that these days. Raising eyebrows expression. Lu Cheng replied. That's when I'm in a daze. After sending this message, Yen Jika suddenly came to her senses. Her face was as red as a tomato and she replied bitterly, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. After a while, Lu Jisheng called and asked Chi Fong and Lu Cheng to go downstairs directly. He said that Ertzi would drive to pick them up. Not bad, Chi Fong said and pulled her son out of the house. They went downstairs and arrived at the entrance of the community. Ertzi drove a big Benz this time. He was smoking and chatting with Lu Cheng's father, Lu Jisheng. When he saw Lu Cheng, he immediately put on a smile and greeted him. Cheng, I finally meet you. You're the pride of our Lu family. The sky was getting dark. Lu Cheng glanced at him and found that he did look a little like his cousin Lu Yanwei. He smiled modestly and said, You're too kind, Brother Ertzi. You're also awesome. Why did he call him Brother Ertzi? Because I still don't know what his real name is. Chapter 428. Haha, I'm just earning hard money. Well, let's get in the car. Mr. and Mrs. C are almost done. We can't keep them waiting for too long. Seeing Lu Cheng, Ertzi put out the remaining half of the cigarette in his hand without hesitation, which made Lu Jisheng, who was smoking, stunned for a dozen seconds. Lu Cheng smiled and shook his head. If you're earning hard money, then I'm earning hard money too. Money that could be earned through sweat and blood. Lu Jisheng also put out the cigarette in his hand and threw it in the trash can. He and Chi Fong sat in the back of the Benz. After Lu Cheng fastened his seatbelt, Ertzi started the car and drove to Lu Debang's house. He said with a smile, I watched your national competition from the beginning to the end. You're awesome. Every man dreams of becoming a master, and you're already a master. On the way, he didn't talk about anything else but martial arts. Occasionally, he would praise Lu Cheng in front of Lu Cheng's parents, making the atmosphere relaxed and harmonious. He must have been in the business for many years. Lu Cheng commented in his mind, but he pretended to be polite. Arriving at his grandfather's house, Lu Cheng had just finished greeting everyone when his cousin, Ma Shi, dragged him into the room. Her eyes sparkled as she pointed at a pile of posters and notebooks. "Brother, you promised me that you would sign for my classmates," she said with pride and admiration. "At least half of our classmates idolize you. Since I said I'm your idol, I'll sign them even if I have to kneel down." Lu Cheng laughed self-deprecatingly. He took a photo of the pile of posters and notebooks and sent it to his wife. He used an emoji with his head hanging from a beam to express his woes. "The troubles of becoming famous. Look at your calligraphy." Yenjika put her hands on her hips and looked at the sky proudly. Seeing her cousin's smiling expression, Ma Shi asked curiously, "Sister-in-law?" Everyone who watched the final competition was impressed by the hug between Lu Cheng and Yenjika. "Yet it's a blow to me." Lu Cheng shook his head with a smile. He took the pen and began to write his name. His wrist was steady and his strength was moderate. The more he wrote, the worse it got. All right. Finally, he exhaled and ended the activity that destroyed his confidence in calligraphy. Of course, if he wrote the words Qian or Sheng, he would still be able to meet people with the help of visualization. "Thank you, second brother. You're so nice." Ma Shi happily organized the posters and notebooks. By the time the brother and sister left the room, the two tables had been put together. Plates and basins of cooked dishes were brought out one by one. The aroma of the dishes lingered in the air. It was different from before. "This is the game I got from Uncle Yu in the village. Try it, it's really good." Erzi introduced them to Lu Cheng with a smile and praised Lu Jiqiang. "It's all thanks to second uncle's excellent craftsmanship. Most people wouldn't be able to handle these." Lu Jiqiang smiled smugly and said, "These wild animals are just like that. Back when I was a cook in the army," he kept bragging about the past, completely not noticing that Erzi's face had darkened a bit. "These wild animals were just SSO. Lu Cheng wanted to laugh when he heard their conversation. He secretly sighed that his second father was indeed a man who offended others the moment he opened his mouth. When he sat down and tasted a few pieces of different game, his mind suddenly became active. "It's really good. I should let Ka try it too. Well, I was worried about what to bring to Ka's grandfather's house. Uncle Yu in the village should be the uncle who told me to go to him if I want to eat wild animals. Hee, I'm his son's savior." While thinking, he didn't feel ashamed to ask about the dishes he thought were good, and he firmly remembered Erzi's answer. This meal made Lu Debong very happy. He made an exception and drank more than usual. After praising Lu Cheng, he reminded Lu Yanwei to work hard under Erzi and live up to the expectations of his relatives. At this time, Lu Cheng noticed that his cousin Lu Yanwei was dressed like a dog, so he asked with concern, "Brother, what are you doing with brother Erzi now?" The day Qifeng mentioned this, he wanted to ask his cousin, but he didn't expect that Yan Zhika would go abroad a year early. He didn't have time to care about it. Before Lu Yanwei had time to answer, Erzi said with a smile, "You've won the nationals and become the heavenly son of the era. The entire Xioshan city is proud of you, and the martial arts atmosphere is flourishing. In addition, the team formed by your city performed well this time, and almost made it to the second stage. You already have a lot of supporters. Therefore, your city plans to build a new martial arts arena and form a comprehensive business district that integrates health, fitness, leisure, and entertainment. I'm new here, so I don't have a big appetite. I only want to eat one piece, but I'm not familiar with this place, so I asked Yanwei to help me." Then he looked at Lu Debong and said, "Fourth grandpa, don't worry. Yanwei has done a good job these days." Lu Cheng listened to them thoughtfully and didn't express any opinion. Instead, the elders all exclaimed that he had become a household name in Xioshan, and directly led a trend that changed the city's planning. Star? Erzi laughed secretly and shook his head slightly. Fourth grandpa's family had little contact with the martial arts circle, so they didn't have any practical experience. They only knew that Cheng was a great man, but they didn't know how great he was or what it meant in the real world. They just thought he was like a star. But in fact, in his eyes, as half an insider in the martial arts circle, Chung should be a powerful man, famous and powerful in the future. He didn't talk about this, but changed the topic and talked about the family affairs in Qingfu County. The lively dinner was coming to an end. At this time, Lu Yanwei, whose face was getting rounder, winked at Lu Cheng, indicating that he had something to say to him. I'll take the fruit out of the fridge. Lu Yanwei stood up and walked to the kitchen, which made his mother, Wang Lily, want to wipe her tears. She sighed that her son had finally matured. Lu Cheng went to the kitchen with an excuse to go to the bathroom. He saw Lu Yanwei holding his phone and chatting with someone with a smile on his face. I have a girlfriend, he said to his cousin, a little embarrassed. Ah, brother, when did you have a girlfriend? Lu Cheng was shocked. Didn't his cousin go on several blind dates without success? Just right. Lu Yanwei smiled so widely that his eyebrows couldn't be seen. We met before playing games. But at that time, I failed to start a business several times. I didn't have any confidence and didn't dare to pursue her. Recently, I ran some business with Brother Erzi and got back some confidence and some money. As he spoke, his voice grew softer and softer. Suddenly, he exhaled and said hesitantly, Cheng, I feel like I'm in a dream right now. What if Brother Erzi doesn't succeed in his business, or I accidentally offend him? Wouldn't I be back to square one? From his face, Lu Cheng could see that he was worried about personal gains and losses. After thinking about it, he recalled Ke's occasional words and combined them with his own experience and opinion. Brother, you don't have to worry so much. What's important is what you can learn from this. You see, in business, you need money, connections, and foresight. If you follow Brother Erzi, you'll definitely meet a lot of business people. You'll build up your own connections if you deal with them well. Then you'll gain experience and foresight from this project. Even if it doesn't succeed in the future, or they turn against you, you'll become a better Lu Yanwei and can find a way out. Lu Yanwei listened attentively. His expression gradually relaxed as if he had untied a lot of his worries. After a moment of silence, he said self-deprecatingly, Cheng, why do I feel that you're more mature than me? It's as if you're my brother. I almost called you brother just now. Lu Cheng pointed at himself and laughed. Call me brother. Come on. You're so rude. Lu Yanwei's smile brightened. He took out fruits from the fridge and cut them into plates and rinsed them. After dinner, Erzi said that they had finally gathered everyone and proposed to take a family photo. He would find a place to print it digitally. Lu Cheng didn't care. He stood beside his grandfather and completed the photo. After taking the family photo, Erzi took the initiative to ask Lu Cheng to take a picture with the heavenly son of the age. Lu Cheng wouldn't refuse such a small thing. Learning from his little fairy, he stepped back and faced the camera with a smile. After chatting for a long time and sending the Lu family back home, Erzi drove to Qingfu County via the highway. He entered his own company and turned on the computer to print the photos. After carefully looking at the family photo and the one with Lu Cheng for a while, the smile on his face grew wider. He turned over 2 photo frames, put them in, and placed them on the boss's desk, facing the guests. Just then his phone rang. A call came in. Hello, brother he. Why are you calling me so late? I'm in the company. Come over, and we can talk face to face. Okay, I'll wait for you. Putting down his phone, the corners of Erzi's mouth curled up. His gaze passed through the window and looked at the lights below. After almost half an hour, the sound of footsteps could be heard. A 30-year-old man in a suit pushed open the door to Erzi's office. He saw Erzi sitting behind the desk, holding a pen in both hands and slowly turning it. Boss Lu, you're in a good mood. The man in the suit smiled reservedly. Just then, his eyes swept over the 2 photo frames on the table and saw the 2 photos. Boss Lu, you don't show your true colors. The man in the suit was stunned at first, then his smile turned into a bright one. Erzi, Lu Yuanzhang's smile became more obvious. In the Lu family, after Lu Jisheng went to take a shower, Lu Cheng and Qifeng talked about Yanzhika's favorite dishes. In the midst of their idle chatter, he suddenly remembered something and interrupted them. Mom, do you know Erzi's name? You haven't mentioned it to me. I didn't think about asking before. Qifeng was stunned for a moment and answered, Lu Yuan, What's Lu Yuan again? Sigh, I don't remember clearly. Speaking of this, the mother and son looked at each other and smiled, throwing this matter to the back of their minds. Who cares what his name is? Chapter 429. Qi Fong returned to the topic at hand. She asked curiously and nervously, "What's the matter with Ertzi?" "Chung, how much did Jika's family give you when you visited them?" "I have to go to the bank tomorrow to withdraw money for this." Lu Qing smiled and said, 10,001 yuan. The meeting with his parents-in-law was informal, so he didn't have the necessary etiquette. He didn't receive a big red packet until he went to Jiangnan and finished his walk with Senior Ji. No, he should call him Grandpa. In fact, to the Ji family and the Yen family, a red packet of 10,001 yuan was nothing at all. However, considering the Lu family's situation and the fact that Lu Chung was still in school, they decided on this number. It was more symbolic than practical. 10,001. That's good, that's good. Qi Fong breathed a sigh of relief and smiled again. If it had been 2 months ago, she might have had a headache over the issue of red packets since she had spent all her savings on buying a house and renovating a house. However, things had come to an end. Lu Jisheng had been promoted and received incentive shares and corresponding bonuses. Their family's financial situation had improved, and they could still afford 10,000 yuan. As for the couple getting married, it was still too early, at least 3 years away. By then, they would be well off. Lu Qing felt his mother relax and couldn't help but smile. "Mom, you don't have to go to the bank tomorrow. I have almost 10,001 yuan in cash. You just need to get some. For your wife." Qi Fong was about to say something wrong. She laughed and said, "It's a red packet for your girlfriend. How can I spend your money?" "But isn't it natural for me to give money to my parents?" Lu Qing said gently. "Mom, you're right. You're my wife, and you have a certificate. No, this is a gift from your dad and me." Qi Fong waved her hand and refused. "Our family is doing well these days. Keep the cash for yourself. Don't let her suffer." Okay. Lu Qing didn't insist. After all, he would find a chance to give more money to his mom in 2 days. At this time, Lu Jisheng came out of the shower. With the TV program as the background, the family of 3 talked a lot about Yenjika's visit to her in-laws. In the end, Qi Fong clapped her hands and decided to take her husband to buy some nice clothes after the cleaning tomorrow, so as not to embarrass her son. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The night was getting darker. Lu Qing finished showering and lay on the bed. He shared the contents of their discussion with Yenjika in the form of interesting news. He played the role of a mole perfectly. After talking about this matter, he felt the desolation and silence around him. He sighed with a smile and typed on the keyboard. "The night is long, I can't sleep alone." Yenjika quickly replied with a snickering emoji. "Unfortunately, I have Empress Dowager to accompany me." Mother and daughter talk at night. "I don't know what it means to be alone and unable to sleep." After that, she sent a message. "Do you think I will sympathize with you?" I almost laughed out loud expression. Following that, she added, All right, big sister will dote on you tomorrow. Be good and go to sleep." Sensing the subtle fluctuations and changes in his wife's emotions, Lu Qing smiled and asked, "How does it hurt?" "How else can it hurt? In broad daylight, in front of so many people. How do you want it to hurt?" Yenjika said with an emoji of slamming the table. "I just want you to have breakfast with me. What are you thinking about? Your thoughts are a little dirty recently." Lu Qing replied with an emoji of a sinister smile. Yenjika's face was flushed. She gritted her teeth and sent an emoji of knocking on the head. "It's all because you are too dirty. That's why I'm thinking dirty. It's all your fault. Quick, say I'm wrong." Yes, Coach Yen, I'm wrong." Lu Qing typed with a smile and inexplicably missed her. Seeing his reply, Yenjika was silent for more than 10 seconds. "Chung." "What?" Lu Qing asked in confusion. "I miss you a little." Yenjika held her phone and lay on her side. Her eyes softened. Although they had only been apart for a little more than 4 hours. "Me too." Seeing this, Lu Qing's emotions calmed down. His heart was peaceful, just like the scenery outside the window covered with a veil of moonlight. Compared to the burning passion, this was the beauty on the other side of love. The next morning, Lu Qing got up early and quickly washed up. He put on the navy blue Longhu Club martial arts suit and ran to the villa community by Backwater Lake to warm up before the training. At the entrance of the community, he sent a message. Not long after, he saw Yenjika running out quickly. The girl's black hair was tied up, and she was wearing plain white. She was pretty and elegant. What a coincidence, Lu Qing said with a smile. Ku was wearing the female version of the Longhu Club martial arts suit, which happened to be a matching outfit with his. And they didn't tell each other beforehand. What a coincidence. Yenjika showed her dimples and smiled sweetly. Girls always liked coincidences like this. It made them feel as if their hearts were connected. Without saying anything, the couple looked at each other deeply and ran to Backwater Lake with a smile. In summer, the sun rose early, so people started their morning exercises earlier. Lu Qing and Yenjika changed their usual places 3 times before they found a relatively secluded training spot. After a tender kiss, the two of them separated. Lu Qing got into a stance and started to move his joints. Crackling sounds came from his body. After this, he couldn't help but turn his head to look at his wife. He saw Yenjika's face was red, and she was ready to practice still stance. Practice your martial arts. What are you looking at? Sensing Lu Qing's gaze, the girl pouted playfully. Her eyes were clear and seductive. I'm looking at the motivation for practicing martial arts. Lu Qing replied with a smile, training harder and harder. Just like that, they focused on each other and occasionally looked at each other. They felt that time pass quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of the morning exercise. Ku, what's your plan today? Lu Qing asked with a smile while jogging to breakfast. Yenjika looked up and said, I have to chat with Empress Dowager and my dad and cook with them. Well, I'm just an assistant and have to buy a gift for your family. What about you? If you didn't have any plans, we would have fooled around together. Lu Qing laughed. Fooled around your head. Yenjika glared at him, annoyed and amused. What kind of words are you using? Lu Qing laughed and said, Since you want to spend time with Empress Dowager and your father-in-law, I have to go home and help my mom with the cleaning. He wasn't familiar with his father-in-law and mother-in-law yet. It would be awkward to intrude and ruin the atmosphere and feelings. After the cleaning, I'll go to the Gushin Martial Arts School's strength training gymnasium for another 2 hours to push the door of the inhuman stage. Then I'll find Qin Rui and Fatty Jiang for a gathering. He described his plan. Okay. Yenjika nodded like a chick pecking at rice. As they ran, the two of them slowed down their pace. They started to hold hands, and then they started to walk faster. After eating the dumplings outside the No. 1 middle school, and sending his little ferry to the entrance of the neighborhood, Lu Qing started his daily routine according to plan. It was past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The scorching sun was high in the sky and there seemed to be heat waves rising from the ground. Lu Qing, Jiang Fei, and Qin Rui hid in a row under the shade of a tree and sat on the railing, leisurely looking at the gate of the No. 1 middle school a few meters away, watching the youthful juniors walk in one by one. Chung, if you don't wear glasses, there will be a lot of people surrounding you. Fatty Jiang turned his head and looked at his best friends playing glasses. Yeah, Chung is now a big celebrity in Xioshan. Our martial arts school doesn't need to say anything. As long as we mention that he used to be a part-time coach here, the number of applicants will explode instantly. Qin Rui echoed with a smile. After he succeeded in meditation, his strength improved rapidly. With the training of the preliminaries, he was almost at the level of 9th pin, almost catching up with Dai Linfeng. Lu Qing laughed and said, I worked hard to achieve this. You can't be jealous. By the way, why didn't old Qing come out? He usually takes a long time to reply when I chat with him on QQ. He hadn't seen Qing Chili for almost a year. It's the same if I talk to him. Alas, maybe he made a lot of new friends in college and was busy with other things, so he didn't have time to meet us old classmates. Jiang Fei sighed. I've always thought that my contact with the other students in class would indeed become less and less in the future. However, The friendship between the three of us should be able to last for a very, very long time. In the end, sigh, when old Cheng thinks of us in the future, it will most likely be a red bomb. Believe it or not, I will send you one now. Lu Cheng complained in his heart, feeling a little disappointed. Friendship was such a thing. Once one party was cold, they would quickly become passers-by. The other classmates here expressed their dissatisfaction. Qin Rui made a joke. I'm just giving an example. I'm just lamenting my relationship with old Cheng. Jiang Fei pointed at the gate of the number 1 middle school and said, Cheng, old Cheng, and I would sit here from time to time, looking at the school gate to see if there were any beautiful girls to admire. We would enter when class was about to start. Once we happened to see Yenjika, with her long hair fluttering in the wind. He stopped here and thought of the end of the goddess. He glanced at Lu Cheng sadly and said, Forget it, let's not talk about it. It's really a sad story. Ha! Lu Cheng laughed, both physically and mentally. Qin Rui also laughed and said, I heard that there was a new teaching director recently. He forbade girls to keep long hair. Damn, what a pervert. Jiang Fei cursed excitedly. After joking about school affairs for a while, Qin Rui said smugly, Cheng, how confident do you think I am to participate in the ranking event of professional 9th pin now? He had asked Lu Cheng for advice in the morning. Settle down and train hard for 3 more months. You have a great chance to participate in the ranking event in October. Lu Cheng didn't exaggerate or belittle. Okay. Qin Rui gripped the railing tightly and couldn't hide his smile. Jiang Fei sighed and said, I feel that you two are not from the same world as me. When I first entered school, I wanted to be a successful person in the future. After 2 years of school, my dream has plummeted. I just want to find a good job after graduation, so that I don't have to live off my parents. After 2 more years, your dream will still plummet. Lu Cheng said sarcastically. As long as you have a job. Maybe. No, I have to pull myself together. Jiang Fei seemed to be stimulated. He had once wanted to lose weight and exercise, but after a winter break he stopped. He only did it once a week. Sometimes he would even slack off, so his body remained the same and he still didn't have a girlfriend. While Jiang Fei was murmuring, Lu Cheng's phone rang and an incoming call came in. Hello, master? Seeing that it was Comrade Shi Jiangwo, he quickly answered the call. Brat, I'm getting your visa to America. Geezer Shi coughed and said, Are you busy today? Lu Cheng was puzzled and answered, Nothing. Why did master ask this? Well, I have a small task for you. It'll take you half a day at most. Geezer Shi laughed. A small task? Lu Cheng said to himself in surprise. Chapter 430. What's the matter? Lu Cheng felt uneasy. His master was sometimes unreliable. Geezer Shi laughed and said, A disciple of the ice god sect named Li Zhenhua is in trouble in Linbian. You're the closest to him, so go and take care of him. Taking the high-speed rail to Linbian was indeed an hour and a half wasted time. Lu Cheng nodded slightly and asked, Master, what's the trouble? It's a long story. You brat, you don't understand this old man at all. Geezer Shi laughed and scolded him. Write down her phone number and call her later. She'll tell you the whole thing. XXXXX. Okay. Lu Cheng repeated it twice and asked Jiang Fei to write it down. He asked, Master, I'm not working part-time in the sect. I should be paid for this kind of task, right? Hey, when did you become so greedy? Geezer Shi smiled in surprise. Lu Cheng smiled embarrassedly and said, Ku is going to study in America, so I need to save more money for the trip. As for using his own influence and connections to do business with others, he still couldn't cross the threshold in his heart for the time being. Not bad. You know how to save money for this. You're very responsible. I'm sure you'll be paid. Let's talk about it later. How can the sect treat you unfairly? Even if it's not for you, it's for me. At this point, Geezer Shi was still worried and reminded him, When you arrive at the woodland, remember to give me a call if anything unexpected happens. Okay. Lu Cheng didn't say more. After the call, he quickly dialed the number his master gave him. The cheerful ringtone rang for less than 3 seconds before the call was connected. A tired and anxious female voice said, "Hello, who's this? I'm Lu Cheng from the Ice God sect." Lu Cheng's voice was low and concise. The female voice suddenly became excited. "Hello, senior. I'm Li Jianhua's girlfriend, Zhang Xiaozi." "A senior?" Lu Cheng was stunned by the name. He didn't have time to correct her and asked directly, "What happened to Li Jianhua?" It was his girlfriend who was answering the phone. "They didn't tell you? Jianhua, he's missing." "Senior, this matter is rather complicated, so I can't explain it clearly. When you arrive, I'll tell you the details in person," Zhang Xiaozi said in an anxious tone. Sure enough, master is not very reliable. Lu Qing thought to himself. Since he had to go and take a look anyway, he nodded and said, "Okay, I'll let you know when I book the tickets. Let's meet at the high-speed rail station." Okay, I'll wait for you, senior." Zhang Xiaozi was obviously relieved, as if she had found her backbone. "Senpai, do I sound that old?" He opened the app and booked the train to Linbian at 2:25 p.m., leaving the return trip aside for the time being. "Fatty Jiang, send me to the high-speed rail station. I have something to deal with in the sect." Lu Cheng had never been polite with Jiang Fei. "Tisk Cheng, you're starting to look like a business elite." Jiang Fei had just finished watching a series about the workplace last night. Lu Cheng was about to mock himself when he suddenly thought of something. "Wait, Fatty Jiang, send me home first, then go to the high-speed rail station." Linbian was not part of the Xing province, but an important border area. Although it was still far from the national border, it was a land transportation hub with a large flow of people. The security there was not very good, and could even be said to be a little chaotic. Even though he was in Xioshan, he could hear from time to time that there was a big case there. Plus, it was a multi-ethnic area, so the atmosphere was quite tough. Therefore, even if he did not intend to do it, he had to be prepared. As the car started moving, Lu Qing took out his phone and sent a message to Yenjika. Facebomb expression. "Capable people do more work. My master sent me to Linbian to deal with a trouble caused by a junior disciple. I'm a martial uncle, and if something really happens to someone of my generation, it's not something I can solve." Yenjika replied very quickly with an emoji of a dumbfounded face. "Okay, so sudden. Linbian is quite chaotic. Cheng, you have to be careful. Change into your martial arts suit. No matter what happens, don't think about holding back. You're the most important." She said a lot in one go, and at the end she said, "I'll wait for you to come back. With my dear wife's words, I'll definitely be able to return safely tonight." Lu Qing sent an excited emoji with a red scarf wrapped around its head. "I'm just about to go home and change into my martial arts suit." When he reached home, he took out another set of navy blue Longhu Club martial arts suit, and changed into the custom-made training shoes made for him by Wu Qinggui's company. He tightened his sleeves, took his phone and wallet, and strode out of the door. 2:08 p.m. He was sent to the high-speed rail station by Jiang Fei. 2:15 p.m. Lu Qing passed the security check and boarded the high-speed rail. 2:25 p.m. The high-speed rail started on time, roaring towards the south. 3:52 p.m. The high-speed rail stopped at Linbian Station. Lu Qing sent a message to Yenjika and followed the line out of the carriage. 3:59 p.m. He walked out of the arrival hall in his navy blue suit and found the iconic white horse statue in the square in front of the station. This was the place where he and Zhang Xiaozi agreed to meet. "Zhe, senior?" A girl in her 20s with a hairstyle called out uncertainly. She was thin, wearing a short-sleeved shirt, shorts and jogging shoes. She could barely be considered pretty. "Zhang Xiaozi?" Lu Qing asked in reply. Yes. Your senior Lu Qing? Didn't you say you were going to meet a martial uncle?" Zhang Xiaozi asked, half surprised and half confused. It was because of this that she called him senior directly. "I know you're not a disciple of the Ice God sect, and you don't care much about the university martial arts competition or similar topics." Lu Qing thought and nodded steadily. "I joined the sect late, so I'm senior." Before Zhang Xiaozi asked again, he looked at the taxi queue and adjusted the sleeves of his martial arts suit. "Let's talk on the way. Don't waste time." She was missing, so he had to seize every minute and second. Yes, Senior. Zhang Xiaozi quickened her pace and followed beside Lu Cheng. She quickly picked up the key points. Linbian has a rich man called Si Jianting. He colluded with a warlord in the war-torn area in the south. He opened several underground casinos near the border and lured many people to play there until they lost their family fortune. Zhenhua's father was one of them. When he was 13 years old, he committed suicide in the casino, and his family was ruined. He came for revenge? Do you have evidence? Lu Qing didn't stop walking and asked directly. The sect generally didn't care about this kind of revenge that didn't have any reliable clues. Yes. Zhang Xiaozi quickened her pace to a trot. He watched Si Jianting for 2 or 3 years. This time he said he could get decisive evidence, so he rushed to Linbian. Because he was afraid of an accident, he took me with him. He told me to immediately notify the sect if something was wrong. Then how did he go missing? Lu Qing slowed down his pace and wasn't so anxious to get close to the taxi queue. There were so many people, so who knew if the taxi driver knew the person over there? Zhang Xiaozi took a breath and said, Last night, Zhenhua said that he wanted to investigate Si Jianting's Lin Fu building at night and find those several decisive pieces of evidence. I watched him go in, but he didn't come out the entire night. I saw that something was wrong, so I immediately called the sect's senior brothers according to what he said. The sect first pressured the provincial police to come here and deal with it, but their local protectionism is particularly strong, so they didn't pay much attention. They searched once and found nothing. They looked at the surveillance video, but there was no scene of Zhenhua going in. I clearly saw him go in. I urged them again and again, but there was still no result. I could only report back to the sect, and they let Senior come. Although Lu Cheng was much younger than she had expected, in this kind of situation, she was grasping at the last straw. She didn't dare to change her attitude in the slightest. Lu Cheng quickened his pace and said in a low voice, Let's go to the Linfu building to take a look first. You carefully recall if there are any important details missing. We'll talk about it after we get off the taxi. Yes, Senior. Zhang Xiaozi walked breathlessly. At 4:21, the taxi stopped on the opposite side of the street from the Linfu building. Lu Cheng, wearing a navy blue martial arts suit, pushed open the door and walked out. He looked at the 19-story building, which was generally short and old in the woods. This could be considered a landmark with a rather modern atmosphere. Si Jianting has been transforming and washing his name in the past few years, and has started to get involved in real estate. This is a joint development between him and several companies. Zhang Xiaozi introduced. She hadn't finished speaking when her eyes suddenly widened. She pointed to the opposite side and said, Si Jianting. Lu Qing looked up and saw an old man in his 50s with a rigid outline and an aquiline nose. He was surrounded by 7 or 8 bodyguards and subordinates as he walked out of the Linfu building's door. His eyes were sharp and cold. This was Si Jianting. In the taxi, Lu Qing had seen the photo Zhang Xiaozi had taken of him, but they hadn't talked about it. Compared to Si Jianting, Lu Qing was more concerned about the 2 bodyguards at his side. One had dark skin, and his facial features were very characteristic of the war-torn areas in the south. The other had muscles that supported his t-shirt. Every step he took was neither too long nor too short, just right, as if measured with a ruler. They were all dance stage martial artists. As for their specific levels, it was very difficult to judge from their appearance. The 2 of them are very strong. Without them, Si Jianting wouldn't have survived until now. That dark-skinned one is called Wilson. He's a freelance killer in the war-torn areas. Later he was seriously injured and was taken in by Si Jianting, becoming his confidant. At his peak he was said to be close to level 6. That muscular guy is called Huang Qingda. His strength is a bit worse than Wilson's, but he's also a martial artist who's seen a lot of blood in the war-torn areas. Zhang Xiaozi repeated the information Li Zhenhua had collected. Senior, don't be careless. They're definitely hiding guns, the kind with large caliber. As she spoke, she impatiently said to herself, Where are they going? Home. You ask the people in the police station here. Lu Qing calmly ordered. Okay. Zhang Xiaozi quickly took out her cell phone and asked a few questions. Her face suddenly became very bad. She turned her head and anxiously said to Lu Cheng, "Si Jianting wants to go to the south to discuss business. The people in the police station said they have no evidence or clues, so they can't stop him. Senior, he wants to run." Of course, the south was the border. And if Si Jianting ran, Li Zhenhua would most likely disappear forever. But there's no evidence. Lu Cheng saw 2 black cars drive to the entrance of the building. He saw Wilson quickly run forward and open the back door of the second car. Huang Qingda protected Si Jianting as they approached. He thought for a moment, dialed his master's number, and briefly and comprehensively repeated the current situation. "You decide for yourself," Gieserscher said with some schadenfreude. "What's the bottom line?" Lu Qing asked back. Gieserscher muttered to himself for a few seconds, coughed twice, and said, "Don't kill anyone." Chapter 431. Don't kill anyone. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched, and he silently hung up the phone. Then he observed the surrounding terrain, and walked towards the exit of the Linfu building. "Senior, they're about to get in the car." Zhang Xiaozi trotted after him, anxiously reminding him. Lu Cheng didn't look at her, and his left hand steadily pressed down, indicating that she shouldn't speak. At the same time he dialed another number, Yanzhika's phone. After a short ringtone, the other side seemed to have been waiting, worried and quickly connected. "Hello, my master is unreliable. A small matter has become a big trouble." Lu Cheng bitterly laughed. On the way here, he fully believed in his master, and treated the trouble in Linbian and Li Zhenhua's disappearance as urgent but not dangerous matters. Although he was prepared to take action, it was only in case, and he didn't really know him, so he could still chat with Ku with a relaxed and cheerful attitude. Later, even though he had figured out the whole story from Zhang Xiaozi, he still felt that his task was more to find clues, pressure and urge the police to search again, and cooperate with them with the keen senses of the Dan stage. Even if he did take action, at most he would just be a supporting role, easy and relaxed. Until Si Jianting showed signs of escaping, his master gave him the bottom line. Only then did he feel that this matter was more thorny and a little dangerous, and he had to explain it to his other half. This master who cheated his disciple. On the other side of the phone, Yanzhika's heavy breathing was clearly heard through the radio. She was silent for a moment before she said, "Can you not do it?" Lu Cheng smiled and said, "It's related to the life and death of a martial nephew. Don't worry, I won't take action without absolute certainty. To be blunt, I'm not his father, mother, or master, so I don't need to take any risks for him." These words made Zhang Xiaozi's face pale, and she almost fell down. Taking action with absolute certainty, then wouldn't that be hopeless? Facing 2 powerful Dan stage martial artists and 5 or 6 armed bodyguards, plus Si Jianting who was at the peak of 9th pin in his prime, he had to be at least an inhuman stage senior to have absolute certainty. That would be the upper class of a sect. Exactly, he's not a fairy. Yanzhika slightly relaxed and added another sentence out of concern. "You promise?" "I promise." Lu Cheng promised in a deep voice. If Si Jianting didn't get on the carriage, and didn't let his subordinates split up, facing 2 level 7 Dan stage martial artists and several bodyguards armed with large caliber firearms, then although he had a grasp of the situation, it wasn't worthwhile for him to take the risk for a martial nephew he didn't know. After all, once he was entangled with the experts for a short period of time, the firepower would cross, and he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Just like that time when he went to the Guo family as a bodyguard, the rank 7 fugitive knew how to retreat when faced with him and the 4 sharpshooters, who were at most rank 8 in terms of combat strength, and didn't take the risk. However, since they had already boarded the vehicles, things were much simpler. This was equivalent to a martial artist entering an iron coffin. They were confined in a small space and could not move freely. They would not be able to use 50% of their abilities. Furthermore, most of the gunmen were in the first vehicle. For other masters who had not reached the inhuman stage, they might not be able to seize such an opportunity. But in his eyes, they were living targets for him, who could release his supernatural ability and whose power had long increased. All right. Yenjika rationally knew that she shouldn't say more, but she couldn't help adding, "Call me later, I'll wait for you, no problem." Lu Qing answered with a smile and hung up the phone. He handed his phone and wallet to Zhang Xiaozi and said, "You stay a little further away." A broken phone was very troublesome, and he couldn't immediately call Ke. And his wallet couldn't be harmed, because it was a gift from his wife. Okay. Senior, please be careful." Zhang Xiaozi was delighted. She took the things and quickly retreated. At 4:26, Xi Jinping's motorcade started moving, heading towards the exit of the Linfu building. Most of the bodyguards were in the first vehicle, and he himself was in the second. On his left and right were Wilson and Huang Qingda, and there was another bodyguard in the passenger seat. When the first vehicle turned into the wide and empty road, the second vehicle was about to turn when Lu Cheng, who was calmly standing in front of them, suddenly took a step forward. His aura suddenly flared up, like a whistling northern wind, making the hearts of a few pedestrians tremble. They instinctively fled to the distance, avoiding this place. Pa. Lu Cheng stepped on the ground, his body arched, and his left and right hands extended forward. With a hook and a shake, he threw out 2 balls of scarlet flames close to the ground. The light flickered, and a tyrannical aura was hidden. The 2 flames dragged along scorch marks as they rapidly wandered. They respectively rushed towards the 2 vehicles, both aiming for the gas tank. Squeak. An ear-piercing screech of friction rang out, dragging on for a long time. The vehicles in front and behind respectively turned their steering wheels in an attempt to avoid that terrifying-looking flame. Boom. The burning flame, aimed at the bodyguard's vehicle in front, exploded ahead of time. A wave of fire soared between it and the following vehicles, cutting off their line of sight. Bang. Lu Cheng's muscles bulged, and the concrete road under his feet cracked. He quickly threw himself at the black car Xi Jinping was in. Relying on his already top-notch level 6 physical fitness, he forcibly pushed his footwork realm to the treading dipper constellation. Of course, it was only equivalent to Qiu Lin's level. It still couldn't compare to Peng Liyun's, let alone Ren Li's. Don't stop. When the burning flame came, the experienced Wisen, who had dark skin, shouted anxiously in his unfamiliar Chinese language. However, he couldn't stop human instinct. The driver had already braked and turned, creating a screeching sound and clear tire tracks. At this moment, Wilson felt a stinging pain in his side, and his hair stood on end. He sensed danger approaching. He didn't even think about it. He immediately took a deep breath and fiercely swung his elbow, hitting the car door. Bang. The joint between the 2 sides of the car door split open in an instant, and it transformed into a steel shield that flew out. For Wilson, this could create trouble for the enemy, and it could also help him break away from the vehicle at a critical moment. If he was blocked in such a narrow space, it would be very difficult to use his fists and feet. However, Lu Cheng's speed was faster than his reaction, exceeding his imagination. When the joint of the car door had split open, he was already close. His waist sank and swung, his chi and blood converged and released. His right arm suddenly became thick, and his palm pressed against the car door. Bang. The car door that was about to fly out was forcibly pressed down. It caved in and twisted out of shape, exposing wires, components, and other things. It smashed into Wilson's body, making him feel a burst of pain and dizziness. At this moment, Xi Jinping, who had experienced several similar incidents, shrank back and made space. Huang Qingda, who had already pulled out his gun, fired a shot at the deformed car door from the other side. Bang. As soon as he tried to pull the trigger, Lu Qing sensed it. He straightened his back, hung his feet upside down, and flipped over to the roof of the car in time to avoid the bullet. The other car hadn't yet stopped, and the bodyguards still hadn't gotten out. Their line of sight was blocked by the waves of fire. The sparse passing cars noticed the abnormality and promptly responded. Because of the location Lu Cheng had chosen, they weren't affected too much. Some people even wanted to stop and watch the show. Bang! Lu Cheng's wrist shook again, and a red fireball took shape. It smashed into the roof of the car where Huang Qingda was, causing him to sense it. He shot a bird at the sky, and with a bang the fireball exploded. Seizing this opportunity, Lu Qing pulled back and landed on the ground again before the bodyguard in the front passenger seat could react. His left hand promptly threw out a ball of sparkling and translucent white cold light, hitting the head of Wilson, who was dizzy and didn't have the space to dodge. With a dull pop, a layer of ice crystals and thick frost condensed on the outside of Wilson's head, and he temporarily lost consciousness. With a step, Lu Qing rushed to the back of the car before Huang Qingda and the bodyguards in the front row could open fire. His body arched, and his two hands clasped together. His muscles swelled with Dan force. Gotcha! Lu Qing's eyebrows furrowed, and the spider web under his feet spread outward. He lifted and lifted his arms, and with the strength to uproot a mountain, he directly flipped the black car to the side. Bang bang! Huang Qingda and the bodyguards in the front row could no longer aim, and two bullets shot into the flower bed beside them. While they were panicking and lacked the space to dodge, Lu Qing flashed like a ghost and arrived in front of Huang Qingda's car door. He avoided the front, and through the broken and deformed gap, he formed a seal with both hands and said in a low voice, "Soldier!" The car flipped, and Huang Qingda knew it was dangerous. He was preparing to shoot left and right to force the enemy to retreat, and then take Xi Jianting to leave the car and approach the other bodyguards. But his mind suddenly buzzed, as if he had seen a childhood nightmare. For a moment he shivered, unable to make any other response. At this time, a white cold light flew in from the gap and smashed into his face. It also condensed a thick layer of frost, making him lose consciousness. Ice burning directly hit the head, and its effect was only slightly worse than severe warning. It also had a stun effect. Bang! Lu Qing used his strength to pull the car door open, but his body didn't go over. Bang! Xi Jianting's face was ferocious as he fired, but the bullet fell into empty space. From the other car, the bodyguards rushed out, some carrying guns, some carrying knives. Bang bang bang! In the midst of Xi Jianting's gunshots, Lu Qing's steps created a strong wind, and he jumped onto Vincent's side of the car door. His hands shook, and he threw a cold light of ice burning at the bodyguards in the front row who were trying to shoot in fear, and at the still unaware Xi Jianting. With two puffs, the two level 9 bodyguards were covered in white frost and turned into ice sculptures for a short time. Lu Qing leaned down and first picked up Vincent. He used it as a weapon and threw it at the bodyguards who were trying to aim at him, making them dodge or turn into bowling balls. Immediately after, he grabbed Xi Jianting again and showed him to the surrounding people. Immediately, the bodyguards stopped their efforts, not daring to make any more movements. Lu Qing pressed down on Xi Jianting, who was still shivering, and said to the bodyguards in a calm tone, "You still dare to stay here? You're armed with weapons and you're fighting a gun battle on the street. The police will be here soon." These words made the bodyguards completely recover their calm. Seeing that their boss had already been caught, and that they were powerless to reverse the situation, they looked at each other and immediately scattered like birds and animals, escaping without a trace. The only ones left were the still not recovered Vincent, Huang Qingda, and the bodyguards in the front row. Recalling the classic bad guys he had seen, Lu Qing extended his hand and helped Xi Jianting, whose spirit was gradually returning to normal, pat the frost off his collar. He smiled slightly and said, "Boss Xi, can we have a good talk with our ice god sect now?" Across the road, Zhang Xiaozi blankly looked at the time on her phone. 4:28. Chapter 432. 4:28 p.m. Looking at the young man in deep navy blue, Xi Jianting's face was still ferocious. His teeth chattered because of the cold, but he didn't answer a single word, as if he wasn't willing to reveal anything. Lu Qing knew that saving a person was like putting out a fire, so he didn't delay. He immediately put on a serious expression and visualized the sharp and cold army character in his mind. He didn't make any hand seals, nor did he speak in the ancient language. He only combined the bloody feeling of the battlefield with his own terrifying aura. Combined with the words in his mouth, he pressured Xi Jianting's spirit. "Where is Li Zhenhua?" Lu Qing shouted in a deep voice. Xi Jianting inexplicably shivered, and his body trembled. But after so many years of bloodshed in war-torn areas, he stubbornly refused to admit defeat and retained the last of his bearing as an ambitious person. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and spoke again. "Where is Li Jianhua? Where is Li Jianhua?" The two voices were like thunder in his ears. Xi Jinping's eyes couldn't help but reveal a sense of fear, as if he had returned to his youth when he was imprisoned in that warlord's water prison. "Where is Li Jianhua?" Lu Cheng's aura flared, and the surroundings seemed to be filled with the smell of blood. "I'll talk." Xi Jinping couldn't hold on any longer. His spirit completely collapsed, as if he had seen death, seen the end of the world. A suspicious wetness appeared in his pants, and with snot and tears he wailed, "I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. He's not dead, he's not dead. He's in my 19th floor office's secret room." Following Xi Jinping's stammering confession, Lu Qing more or less figured out what had happened. Last night, after Li Jianhua had infiltrated, he'd relied on the tips of the spies he'd bribed to find the account books of Xi Jinping's casino, as well as a batch of contraband smuggled from the war-torn areas, and other key evidence. But when he'd finished collecting and was preparing to leave, he'd been discovered by the night patrol Wisen, who'd suddenly launched a sneak attack and smoothly captured him. Afterwards, Xi Jinping, who'd suspected that his mortal enemy had set him up, secretly rushed over under Huang Qingda's protection. He'd tortured Li Jianhua, and found out that he was an ice god sect disciple. Xi Jinping's head immediately swelled. He could almost imagine the pressure he'd have to bear at dawn. At this point, it was impossible for them to send Li Jianhua away politely, because the other party already knew a lot of decisive things, and there was a deep hatred between them. They had no choice but to deal with the surveillance video overnight. Then they found a connection to stall for time, and began to destroy the evidence in batches. Once he'd perfected his plan, Xi Jinping didn't leave things to chance. He immediately made arrangements to escape, planning to go to the warlord in the war-torn areas to avoid the limelight. As for Li Jianhua, he wanted to directly silence him, but he didn't dare to make a move. This was because under the circumstances where all the suspicions pointed towards him, once he killed an ice god sect disciple, or made him disappear for real, it would thoroughly enrage that colossus. Who knows, it might even send an inhuman or even a physical invulnerability expert to kill him. Escaping to a collaborator that wasn't considered strong would only make the other party even more fearless. Therefore, Xi Jinping was prepared to temporarily spare Li Jianhua this time. In any case, what should have escaped had already escaped, what should have been destroyed had already been destroyed, and what should have been dealt with had already been dealt with. Afterwards, he'd look for an opportunity to create an accident. Under the premise that no one would suspect him, he'd erase this enemy that hated him. Finally, he'd change his appearance, return to his hometown, and take back his property. Why do people who do criminal things like to keep accounts? Lu Qing recalled the TV dramas and novels he'd seen before, and silently complained. Afterwards, he picked up Xi Jinping, who'd collapsed into a pile of mud, and circled around to Huang Qingda's side. He lifted his knee, tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and kicked Huang Qingda's ear, making this dance stage martial artist completely pass out. With his other hand, he pulled Huang Qingda and lifted him up. Lu Qing did the same to Wilson and the bodyguard in the front passenger seat, but he didn't stop the driver from escaping. The reason why he wanted to go through so much trouble was because he felt that he had to do things cleanly. What if Wilson and Huang Qingda were lunatics, and after escaping, wanted to retaliate against him and the people of the Ice God sect? The other bodyguards didn't have this ability, but they did. Since that was the case, he might as well just throw them both to the local police station, and then exert pressure through the sect to sentence them to death. The bodyguard in the front passenger seat didn't have this kind of treatment. After being knocked out by Lu Qing, he was directly thrown into the flower bed. If he could wake up before the police arrived, he could count himself lucky. Lu Qing had just stacked Wilson and Huang Qingda together, making it easier for him to drag them away with one hand, when Zhang Xiaozi ran over in surprise and joy, crossing the road that almost all the cars had already taken a detour. "Senior, Jianhua is okay, right?" She gasped for breath, and asked with both expectation and apprehension. "It's not too big of a deal." Lu Qing hadn't seen the specific situation with his own eyes, so he could only answer vaguely. Zhang Xiaozi already believed him from the bottom of her heart. Hearing what he said, a brilliant smile appeared on her face. Thank you, senior. Her voice hadn't yet fallen when her cell phone suddenly rang. She picked it up and looked at it, and her expression slightly changed. Police station. She looked at Lu Qing with a somewhat panicked expression, asking for a decision. It was obvious that after receiving the police report, the other party had guessed that the Ice God sect was on the move, and had immediately called Zhang Xiaozi, who was in charge of communication. Lu Qing pondered for 2 seconds, then calmly smiled and said, "Just tell them 5 words. No lives were lost." "Yes, senior." Zhang Xiaozi suddenly had a backbone again, and she hurriedly answered the phone. After she made a few yes sounds, she imitated Lu Qing's tone just now, and calmly said, "Don't worry, no lives were lost." The other end of the phone was silent. Lu Qing saw that Li Zhenhua was no longer in imminent danger, and he was afraid that his little fairy would worry for too long, so he temporarily stopped dragging Wilson and Huang Qingda into the Linfu building. He took back his wallet and cell phone from Zhang Xiaozi, and dialed a number. He held Xi Jianting in one hand, and his foot was pressed against Wilson and Huang Qingda. He calmly stood there in navy blue, and then looked at the cars in the distance that were taking a detour, waiting for his wife to answer. 4:32 p.m. When the call connected, Lu Qing was afraid that Yan Zheka would misunderstand, so he rushed to open his mouth first. "Hello, Ko." Yan Zheka clearly exhaled, and her tone was filled with joy as she asked, "You gave up?" "No, it's already been solved." Lu Qing laughed softly. Beside him, Zhang Xiaozi was stunned. The professional and serious senior actually had this side of his chest that resonated with his laughter. "Solved? It's only been a few minutes. Didn't you say that a small matter had become a big trouble?" Yan Zheka was shocked and at a loss. Her body and mind relaxed, and she was so happy that she was about to explode. Hearing his little fairy's clear and surprised voice, Lu Qing couldn't help but brag. He lightly laughed and said, "I made a mistake in my judgment. For me in the past, it was indeed a big trouble, but for me now, yet it's just a small matter." "You're bragging." Yan Zheka was angry, amused, and happy at the same time. How could Cheng make the mistake of not knowing himself and not knowing the enemy? "Yes, I'm bragging. Kochian knows me best." Lu Cheng's old face reddened and he calmly admitted, "It's mainly because their posture was too good, so the matter is simple. I'll tell you the details later." Yes. Yan Zheka's voice was light and quick. Lu Qing thought for a moment, and laughed softly. "I have a goal. I'll strive to make today's kind of trouble into a small matter, within 4 months. I'll remember it for you," Yan Zheka replied with a smile. After a few seconds of silence, she softly said, "Cheng hubby, next time this kind of thing happens, remember to ask clearly before deciding whether or not to go." "Okay." Lu Qing felt pity in his heart, and solemnly promised. But things were always developing and changing. It was very difficult to say that asking clearly at the beginning would solve the problem. It was more important to rely on on-the-spot judgment, and knowing when to retreat. Hanging up the phone, Lu Qing carried Xi Jianting in one hand and dragged Wilson and Huang Qingdao in the other. Under the panicked and scared gazes of the people in the Linfu building, he calmly and steadily boarded the special elevator and arrived at the 19th floor. According to Xi Jianting's instructions, he had Zhang Xiaozi open a secret room and saw a young man with many scars curled up unconscious on the floor. "Zhenhua." Zhang Xiaozi threw herself at him. Lu Qing gave Xi Jianting, Wilson, and Huang Qingdao each a few more times and threw them beside the guest sofa. Then he entered the secret room and checked Li Zhenhua's injuries. His life isn't in danger. He made a judgment and ordered Zhang Xiaozi, "Call the police and tell them to call an ambulance when they come." "Okay, senior." Zhang Xiaozi breathed a sigh of relief. Her heart settled, and she began to dial the number. Lu Qing reported to his master, and let the sect handle the aftermath. 4:37. The sound of police cars and ambulance sirens rang out at the same time. 4:40. Outside Xi Jianting's office, the sound of footsteps could be heard. A group of policemen rushed in and saw a young man wearing a navy blue martial arts suit sitting on the sofa with his head down playing with his phone. His bearing was calm and his posture was leisurely. At his feet, Wilson, Huang Qingda, and Si Jianting were lying in a mess, overlapping each other. They were all unconscious. That famous Lianbian big shot's body was even slightly trembling, faintly emitting a foul smell. On the other side, Zhang Xiaozi, wearing a short-sleeved shirt, shorts and jogging shoes, stood quietly like a maid. Her eyes occasionally drifted to Li Jianhua, who was lying on another sofa. Lu Qing raised his head, smiled at the leading police officer, and asked calmly, "What's the matter?" He asked calmly, "Can I go now?" The police officer was silent at first. Looking at the unconscious Li Jianhua, he nodded heavily. "Yes. That's good." Lu Qing slowly got up. Under the watchful eyes of the police officers and Zhang Xiaozi, he walked out unhurriedly. The office quieted down. Everyone could faintly hear him making a phone call in the elevator. "Hello, Mom, I might be an hour late for dinner." An hour late for dinner. The police officers and Zhang Xiaozi looked at each other. Leaving the Linfu building, Lu Qing waved his hand to stop a taxi and sat in the back. "Go to the Four Joys store," he calmly ordered. His phone's display switched from the booking app to the search page for Lianbian specialties. The driver started the car and asked, Hey, was there a gunfight at Lin Fu's side just now? I heard it was very intense." Lu Qing smiled and said, "I didn't watch, so I'm not too sure." "Well, there will be news later." The driver didn't say anything more. 4:52 p.m. In the Four Joy store, Lu Qing carefully selected 2 boxes of osmanthus cake and 2 cans of matsutake sauce. Then he went next door and bought some mangosteen and other special fruits. 5:19 p.m. He arrived at the high-speed railway station and received a call from Geezershire. "You handled it well today," Comrade Shi Jiangwo praised and then said, "Remember, nothing can go exactly as expected. Today, I am mainly training your ability to deal with accidents and changes. If you improve in this aspect, you won't be flustered when you encounter an accident in the future, and won't be in danger." "You're right." Lu Qing suddenly realized that he had misunderstood his master, and thought that he was unreliable. When he hung up the phone, he suddenly had doubts and muttered, what he said just now couldn't be an excuse made up by his master to cover up his unreliability, right? This is his style. 5:35 p.m. The high-speed railway started to move. Lu Qing leaned back comfortably and played with his phone. 7:25 p.m. Li Jianhua woke up in the Lianbian hospital. After seeing Zhang Xiaozi beside him, he anxiously asked, "Did you catch Si Jianting?" "Yes, your sect sent a young senior to deal with him." Zhang Xiaozi answered truthfully. Li Jianhua immediately relaxed. His expression was absent-minded. After a few seconds, he regained his composure and muttered, "Young senior twice. Where's the senior?" he asked. "He left in the afternoon." Zhang Xiaozi said in detail. "Well, when did the senior come?" Li Jianhua asked casually. Zhang Xiaozi's tone suddenly became very strange. "Also in the afternoon." 7:29 p.m. Backwater Lake. At the entrance of the villa community, Yinzhika, wearing a short sleeves and a long skirt, trotted out. She tilted her head slightly and looked at Lu Qing. "You're still not going back to eat? Why did you come to find me first?" Lu Qing lifted the osmanthus cake, matsutake sauce, and southern fruits in his hand and laughed softly. "I brought you some Lianbian specialties." That you're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.